for yet more racing action, this time for the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix. One scene at the end of the Spring Cup now. It is harbored right in the middle of the series. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Virtual Sports Car Association and the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix, as we are set to duke it out for round number 5 of the 2026 campaign. My name is Will Remble alongside Ron Bonds. We are bringing you all of racing action from start to finish here this afternoon. And Ron, what a journey this is anticipated to be, with one heck of a championship in store for us. And today we see 3 classes take once again to America's Motorsports Playground.
And for the first time here in 2026, the top class, the GTPs, are not going to be out here on the racetrack, but VIR is a stunner of a racetrack. Some have described it as heaven on earth. It is a brilliant track, rich with sports car racing history from an amateur level all the way up to the pros. And just another one of the sprint races that we have to look forward to. The third one this season off the back of Long Beach back in February and Laguna Seca last time out here in this series back in March. Really looking forward to seeing what this race may have in store. It's going to be a fun one for sure.
And the second of 4 sprint races in a row. We're going to be running sprint races all the way until we get out of May. Of course, it's Homestead Miami Speedway next up on May 9th, and then a couple weeks after that, we head to the hashtag Never Lift Crispy 160 at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, which is bound to be a thriller in of itself. But right now, this is, of course, our third of 6 sprint races on the season, or our third sprint race on the season. And you can tell right here that drivers are going to be in it for the long haul. This is going to be one race we are not going to want to forget here this afternoon. Of course, the Virginia International Raceway, a home to sports car racing and club racing alike, and IMSA, typically one of the biggest series that comes out here on an annual basis. They, of course, still come out here every single year in the real world IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So happy to see that it is once again making its return. But what do you make of this race being pushed to earlier in the season? Because the last few years, it's been held a bit earlier in the championship, whereas in 2024, the last time we were at this race, it was all the way at the end of the Sprint Cup at season's end.
You know, I honestly think that may be a good idea, just considering how tough of a track this is. You know, putting all 4 of our classes here, which is what's pretty much just going to be the norm come time a little bit later on this campaign, would be a tight squeeze. Already, we're going to see the LMP2s and the GT3 cars contend with each other throughout this race coming up. That's going to be tough enough as is. But if we were holding this a little bit later on the season and all 4 of our classes had to run between GTP, LMP2, GT3 Pro, and AM, that would just be too tight of a squeeze. I kind of like this call to just put the prototypes out there, put the LMP2s out there, let them be the stars of the show here tonight. Everybody needs to miss out on at least one race during this season. We have already seen the likes of the LMP2s be absent a couple of weeks ago at Long Beach, and then we saw last time out the GT3 AM competitors not out on track for Laguna Seca. So it just feels fair to have this be the one where the GTPs take off and not have all classes out there, because that would just be a little bit too claustrophobic, I think, even for us broadcasters.
Today, it's going to be all eyes on Blanco Motore and Simsport with Ian Lawrence Brown currently on the car for the warm-up session here. These guys have been in a fierce fight in GT Pro, along with the SimCity Racing crew, which is currently headed up by Wiardi Rembotes as they make their... Oh, sorry, this is Frida. That's the Frida Sport. There's the 71 entry that we're looking for. But those 2 drivers here, Ron, they have been engaged in combat for the points lead all season long. Right now, they are separated only by 25 points, and in a series this long, with the races that are this long, of course, mid-race points being scored as well throughout the endurance races, it is frankly impressive that these guys are still this tight on points, where most other classes are 70 points or more separated.
Yeah, it just shows you the competitiveness of GT3 racing in iRacing. We have seen a lot of different teams be able to put together good results. In terms of the wins so far this season, Blanco Motore was able to get back-to-back at Long Beach and the Sebring 12. SimCity Racing, your winner last time at Laguna Seca, and Double Stick Racing were able to win the Daytona 24. Even looking at the Roar to get the season up and rolling, not even a points race. Epic Vans, Pulsar Esports, and the number 73 Aston Martin were able to win it there. So it's been hard to pin down in that category. Now, granted, in the GT3Ms, it's also been a little bit more topsy-turvy, but in that category, consistency has been the name of the game. And the GT3 Pros, on the other hand, everybody going for glory, everybody able to keep it on the road more often than not and give us some brilliant racing in the process. I remember last time out at Laguna Seca, we had a bit of a stunner of a race for those GT3 drivers, giving us battle after battle after battle.
And we're anticipating something similar here this afternoon. And with warm sessions in the books, let's take a rundown of what the starting grid is going to look like here for the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix. In LMP2 to kick things off, it's Alario Jorge in Grow Race Team starting things off on pole alongside Kevin Burnett for the Red Lab Competition entry down in second place. Row 2, it's Alfonso Reyes for Rick Team Racing alongside Gregory Meisner with the Track Limit Sim Racing number 420 down in P4. Row 3 in the field, Samuel Hoff for Patty Engineering SRT goes alongside Matthew Luke for Fury Sim Sports, with row 4 holding Adam Joseph Milhoff for Twin Turn SR by Rebecca Bornheim in the number 22 alongside his teammate in 23rd, Dominic Eisenberg. Top 10 closed down by Rico Kohlmeyer for Visual Motorsports and Kikoya Lisette for Flight Level Racing. And then it is going to be the 11th place contender Aaron Beaver for Going Racing, backing things up in P11.
And now taking a look at your GT3 Pro field, it's going to be Jack Hedgecock behind the wheel of the Going Racing number 18 Ferrari starting from the pole in that class. He'll be alongside the Vulture Motorsports number 65 Porsche making up your front row. Luis Cunha will start this race in P3. Next to him will be Bernardo Silva, those drivers representing Virtual Power and Rick Team Racing respectively. Right behind them, row number 3 in your GT3 Pro category is going to be Ian Lawrence Brown of the Blanco Motore Sim Sport number 183 Aston Martin. They'll be next to the Matco Fisher Motorsports 44 Porsche driven by Manuel Mayer. And then right behind them, row number 4, we'll see the Tolmate Racing number 68 McLaren alongside the Grow Racing number 24 Porsche. Right behind them, completing your top 10 in class, will be Juan Figueroa Pereira in the VSR Competición number 13 car, lucky car 13, next to Chad Dalton behind the wheel of that Aston Martin. Right outside your top 10, it's a Corvette and a Porsche, World of Sim Racing in the 151, next to the Unitronic Fisher Motorsports 84 Porsche. And right behind them in your class will be the Free Sport Porsche, the 911 car, next to the Double Sit Racing BMW. Keep an eye on those BMWs, especially heading down that back straightaway here today. And then from there, it's another McLaren. That is Unica Tango behind the wheel of the Rusty Spatulas Racing 112 car, next to the SimCity Racing Porsche driven by Carson Allen at the drop of the green flag, completing your 16 cars in GT3 Pro.
And it's a similar side in GTM with Stefan Yanasukas, from Blanco Motore Sim Sport down to number 1 of the Aston Martin alongside Nicholas Goen for Goen Racing. Row 2, it's of course Brandon Chan for 499 Racing, a new entry with a Lamborghini, looking to see what they can do this afternoon. Ryan Huff for SR Motorsports down in 4th. Row 3, Timothy Hansen for Rentley SRT will start alongside Will Robertson for Wastegate Racing, with row 4 holding Michael Adamczyk for Flight Level Racing alongside Marty Jeffries for SRM Motorsports. Top 10 closed out by Chris Cadiz for BMW M Team TSR alongside Claudio DeSanto for Wolf Motorsports Sim Racing, with row 6 holding Jason R.R. Smith for SWF Motorsports alongside Joseph Okapian for Off the SS Racing. Row 7 holding Diego Rodriguez for Frida Sport alongside Ryan Steinhoff for Intercom Fisher Motorsports. And then the 16-car field headed up by Nate Boggs and Kyle Potter. The Vulture Motorsports number 64 entry starting in 16th and having to start from pit road due to an entry list violation here this afternoon. So 11 LMP2s and 16 each for pros and M's. And Ron, we are gearing up for what could be a wild day.
Yeah, it is going to be a wild race. This track is historic for many, many reasons. In the sports car world, it has been around the block. In the racing world, period, it has been around the block. A unique history around this place. It was briefly abandoned before being refreshed in the late 90s, opening up back in 2000, and ever since then, you've seen race after race here. Sports car drivers love it. Some see it as heaven on earth. Other drivers may see it as hell on earth, though. This is going to be one that tests these drivers' patience, their nerves, and their skill. And in terms of getting moves around here, there's some good spots, but all in all, it is going to test a driver to even get a move done clean around this place. So keep an eye on this field, especially come time for the lap traffic a little bit later on. That's going to get spicy.
Working our way through the final few corners this time by, and as always, we are happy that you are joining us for what is bound to be a thrilling race here this afternoon. They'll make their way out of the final corner and towards the front straightaway into the restart zone. And officially, the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix, headed up by the LMP2 field, is underway as it's a good getaway from Grow Racing and Tiago Maduro Diaz. They are absolutely gone from this field, taking off down towards turn number 1. Everybody else fanning out behind, looking for 2 by 3, almost coming into turn number 1. It's going to be Diaz continuing to lead the way at the exit of turn number 1, still battling for the number 2 spot in a couple of corners. While here comes the GT cars here, Ron.
Yeah, the green flag flies for them, and they are on their way. And once again, that's a Gone Racing number 18, pole sitter of Jack Hedgecock, jumping out already. Fantastic start from him. Side-by-side racing, fanning out throughout the rest of the field. Drivers looking to be punchy, get the moves done early as the field's packed in like sardines. Saw some close quarters competition in LMP2, close quarters competition in GT3, but a very clean start. Usually don't expect to see drivers actually make it through turn 1 smoothly.
Well, they managed to do so this time around. Up front, Grow Racing continuing to lead the way in LMP2. No signs of this fight being brought to a close anytime soon. Got a pretty big fight picking up as well for 5th place. A 3-way battle at the moment between several of your contenders. This is Patty Engineering, Twin Turn SR, and in fact, both Twin Turn by SR by DeBecker Bornheim cars getting involved. And side by side in GT Pro for Telemetry Racing and Macco Fisher Motorsports, Travis Lincoln having Emmanuel Mayer side by side for 6th place right now through the roller coaster section.
You can see some drivers blinking out there as they headed their way off through the S's. That is a terrifying moment if you're going side by side, but thankfully these drivers have single fouled out. Going side by side through the mid-sector here, you're pretty much just asking for trouble, but everybody has been able to put together a smooth start to this race, running clean out there on the track, but still looking to get some moves done as right now one gives them love to go, and Racing currently leading in both of our GT3 classes.
Saul Sanchez, Flores, and Chad Dalton side by side. The Irish Today Motorsports Aston Martin trying to go down the inside of the Motor Series and Team Corvette. Not going to happen, though. And for 2nd place, Brandon Chan completed the pass at Blanco Pattore Simsport. That Aston Martin dropping 2 spots out of the class lead early on for Stefan Yannisakis. Not the good run that the 283 was hoping for today, as Blanco Pattore Simsport struggling early on. Yeah, certainly been a brutal start for them, but everybody looking to get punchy here. We saw it before we grabbed the green flag, Nolan. I want to raise this. Scorching hot track conditions at the current moment. So these drivers just trying to get the moves done early before those tires get worn down all the way to the canvas. That's a swaparoo for P3 in GT3, and Timothy Hansen behind the wheel down McLaren, jumping his way up into that 3rd place spot as that's a 283. Still trying to fight back, heading off into NASCAR Bend, but not close enough. Yeah, looking at those track temperatures, the ambient temperatures, okay, that's a little bit fine. I know for me personally, I would start to melt at any temperature over about 65, but it's those track temperatures that are worrisome. 50 degrees Celsius right now. That's 121 degrees Fahrenheit. That is rapidly approaching upon the point where by the time the pit stops come around, these tires are basically going to be reduced down to small little black puddles on the road. Oh, for sure, and these drivers are going to have their work cut out for them this afternoon if they want to get this up and sorted. For the time being, the LMP2 field has seen little change from the get-go of this race. Some drivers, like the Twin Turn Machines, have attempted to attack Patty Engineer SRT and Samuel Hoff up the road, and they just have not been lucky enough in getting the run that they realistically need. Vulture Motorsports and Intercom Fishing Motorsports from GTM both having problems at the tail end of the field here, Ron. This is what has happened to them all the way at the back.
This is off through the S's, off in a south bend. This is a turn where if you make a small little mistake, you're going to be in real trouble, as they should go out and buy a lottery ticket once they're done with that stint, because they're so lucky that that didn't end in a crash.
No kidding. That was an incredibly dicey moment for those two, somehow able to pull that up underneath them as we hightail it down the straights now. Check it back in on your GT fields. And again, still not a lot of movement, but we are seeing a battle for 4th place. The Blanco Pattore Simsport again under fire. It seems like that caught a lot of one-lap pace, but now looking for 3 wide. They might lose 2 spots here at once as SR Motorsports and SimCity Racing for GT Pro and Carson Allen trying to get around them as well. So the 71 entry cutting through the field.
Again, drivers looking to get the moves done early. Strike while that iron is hot, as that's a dive heading off into the turn. Works out well, though. Nice little swapperoo. These drivers, I know that they're going to seem aggressive at this opening stage, but we can't really underscore as announcers just how bad these cars are going to be feeling in a few moments' time. You think, oh yeah, hot track, that's just going to help the tires. No, it gets to the point where it is going to be apocalyptically greasy, probably so considering how tough of a racetrack this is on tires. There's 20 turns around this place. Those tires are going to be screeching in agony after only a few laps.
Three-way battle for third. Rick Team Racing, Vulture Motorsports, and Blanco Vittoria Simsport all getting involved. I'm a bit surprised that both Blanco Vittoria Simsport cars have been, I'm not going to say having a poor outing today, but having a less than optimal outing so far this afternoon, because, I mean, these are two cars that we're used to seeing up at the front of the field, so to see them struggling to even get onto the podium spots, I don't, it's caught me off guard a little bit today. This is not the form that we know from those Aston Martins.
Yeah, no, it is not. I gotta wonder whether it's a sort of team deal, whether or not it's just, drivers not feeling up to snuff. Or I gotta wonder how that Aston Martin is working here at VIR. Of course, one of the things I adore about covering sports car racing is the quirks and features surrounding every single different race car. I mentioned when we were going through the starting grid how quick the BMWs are down the straightaways. You can say the same about the Mustangs as well. Just that grunt heading down the straightaways, even though they look like they have the aerodynamic properties of a brick, they're really quick heading down the stretch, which, considering the back half of the circuit is mostly straight, that's going to help them out a little bit later on. But you think about some of the other cars, the Corvettes that we have in this field, the Porsche, the venerable Porsche here in this series that, when you think of GT3 racing, you think of Porsche. When you think of sports car racing, you think of Porsche. And there's a good reason for that. They may not be 100% the fully quickest week in and week out, but that is a staple platform. Keep an eye on those Porsches to maybe make their way through the running order a little bit later on. We currently have one running second in GT Pro.
Second place starting to get a little closer, Ron, in LMP2. Rick Team Racing and Alfonso Race trying to run down Kevin Burnett's Red Light Competition machine just up the road in the number 2 spot. You can see Thiago Maduro Diaz has really checked out early on with the lead here, working on an almost 2-second advantage, 1.7 at the moment, flex between 1.7 and 1.8. But so far, second and third place have not had an answer. They're in a nice little fight of their own.
Yeah, so they've just been able to fight on their own as the driver up in front, your current race leader, is just completely checked out. There's been brilliant pace shown already for that Grove Racing Team Blue effort. Thiago Maduro Diaz behind the wheel of that effort. In practice earlier on, they were second quickest. They, of course, grabbed the pole. They're able to set the fast time and warm up, and right now they're leading the race by, I wouldn't say a massively comfortable margin. Hey, we've seen lap gaps be made up here in sports car racing. But for one of these sprint races, to get off to a start like this, there's still a long way left to go. But I always say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That first step bodes for the rest of the journey, so you better not snap your ankle.
Pro Racing Team just getting around telemetry racing for the 7th place spot in GT Pro. At the moment, Nicholas Goen actually being hounded by, or being disrupted by some pro traffic at the moment. This is Nicholas Goen trying to fend off 499 Racing's Brandon Chan. Now, Chan and the 499 Racing crew, correct me if I'm wrong here, Ron, but I believe this is one of their first entries here in 2026. So very curious to see what this Lamborghini can do at the moment. They're running second place. Not a bad start to their outing here today, and they're only half a second behind their class leader, trying to see if they can run this gap down for the GTM lead. And right now, it's working because Goen cannot get around the McLaren in front of him.
Yeah, so a little stack up going on here. This is music to the ears for that 499 Racing effort in that Lamborghini. One of the oldest GT3 cars that we have here on the iRacing platform has certainly achieved UNC status at the moment. But for that team, this is maybe the good time to join the series, considering many of these drivers in the GTM category haven't been behind the wheel in this series in quite some time. They were absent last time at Laguna Seca, so the last time they were running here in the VSCA was at the Sebring 12. So of all the times to make your debut here this season, I think the 499 Racing effort picked a very good time to join, and they're picking a very good time to apply pressure to your leader.
Making their way out of the final couple of corners and blasting down the straight. For second place, the move being made is Alfonso Race. gets around Kevin Burnett. That was for the second place position at LMB2, but it might not be done yet because Kevin Burnett closing. Does he want to have the look? Back up into the top of the hill. He sure does. Headed into the roller coaster up at turn 13 and 14. Side by side through here. Very rarely works in prototype machinery. And it's going to be Kevin Burnett being forced to back out of that one.
Yeah, no, that is a premier overtaking opportunity at the end of that long, flat-out blast on the back half of the racetrack, heading off its roller coaster. But the kink heading into it of turn 14 before turn 14A, yeah, we've got a lot of that here on this racetrack, don't ask. But that is a good overtaking opportunity, but it is one that can either go very well if you're feeling brave enough and you can get that move done smoothly, it's fantastic. Otherwise, though, you're going to be in a real spot of bothers. Look at that. Don't usually see a driver go for a move heading off an oak tree. Look at that sideways wiggle from him. That was awesome.
Talk about chucking it in there. That is having a lot of faith in your machinery to keep you planted on the racetrack. Everyone else fanning out down the chute. Drivers trying to lock themselves in. This is the look at 11th place in GT Pro. Seeing these guys having a little bit of a dogfight as of late. Look at how big the gaggle back here is. There, of course, is your GTM lead at the back of the shot. So everyone's still fanning out. Single file for the most part. It's hard to pass around Virginia International Raceway. There really aren't a lot of good pass opportunities. I think the best one on a hard braking zone would be down to the turn number 1. Outside of that, I struggle to find many other examples. I guess Oak Tree would count if you're brave enough.
Yeah, we just saw a driver attempt to move off into Oak Tree. It's tricky heading in there because it is a good overtaking opportunity, but with that way the turn is, the kind of it's almost, it is 2 turns baked into one technically, turn 11 and 12, but it's decreasing radius as you head your way off in there. So it's not just a heavy braking zone down on the brakes, down the gears you're going to go, and down the inside you may potentially go on your rival. There's a little bit more finesse that you have to do. You have to have a little bit of bravery to go for it. I talked about the pitfalls of trying to get a move done into turn number 14. That kink and bend in the road means that a driver's going to have to back out of it before they get to the apex there, because otherwise you're going to see just a massive accident. That tire bundle on the outside, find $1 for every single time that I saw a driver hit that tire bundle going for a move off into turn number 14, bounce off into traffic, and turn 14 into a race car bowling alley. Not even just in the sim, in real life as well. I'd probably be able to pay for some of those repairs on the direct race cars.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the turn 14, no joke. I've fallen victim to it many times. It is one of those incredibly deceptive corners, right? Off camber, over a crash, back end's light. Have to slow down way more than you expect for that. VSR Competizione and Juan Figueroa Carrera getting around telemetry racing. The Acura forcing the issue once again, and that McLaren not having a good day so far, down 4 spots in just the opening 13 minutes of this race. They're going to need to up that performance if they want to finish this race good in the points.
Yeah, now these drivers do have to consider exactly what sort of situation they're putting themselves in championship points-wise, as we have this battle for 4th at the moment in GT Pro involving that Blockmatory Sim Sport effort, Vultra Motorsports up in front, and Matco Fisher. So 2 Porsches and an Aston Martin starting to squabble up here. Gotta wonder if that Aston Martin is soon to come alive here. It'd certainly be an ideal situation for them to finally kick on the Hyperjets, kick on the Cuisinarts, and start to go for glory.
You'd have to imagine there is something in the works here for Blockmatory Sim Sport. I mean, this is a team that has always come alive late in the game, and it's weird, right? Because, I mean, in all the races, they usually don't have the most ideal starts, but they're able to just find their way at the end, whether it be circumstance through safety cars or otherwise. They find a way to make it work, so I'm sure that for Blockmatory Sim Sports, we're going to be seeing more of them before too much longer here this afternoon. Just right now, he needs to get a little bit more on the cars before that we can really see that Aston Martin come to life. And I think some clean air might be what the doctor ordered. They just need to find a way around Sean Hatfield in that 4th place spot.
Yeah, but as we were saying a few moments ago, moves here at VIR are a heck of a lot easier said than done. Doubly so considering we're about to cap off the first 15 minutes of this race. The track temperature is still pretty brutal for these drivers, and soon enough, these GT3 competitors are going to have another odd little complication added into the works. Your race leader, Grow Racing Team Blue, Thiago Maduro Diaz, behind the wheel of that effort, is now catching up to the tail end of GT3 traffic, and now starts that lap traffic dilemma, which here at VIR is pretty much nightmare fuel for all parties involved.
Brandon Chan tried to attack his class leader into the roller coaster section. Didn't quite go to plan, but he was able to keep him honest, and I think that is a statement being made from Chan early on. Hey, we may be the newcomers, but we are ready to go to war. And right now, Chan right to the back bumper and the diffuser of that Ferrari right in front. So Brandon Chan doing everything he can to try to keep Nicholas going honest, and I think he's trying to pressure the Going Ferrari entry into making a mistake. Not an easy task for one of the most successful teams in the grid at the moment.
So low battles still going on. That Going Racing stable have been really quick. You know, they're currently leading in both of our GT3 classes. That goes without saying. However, it's a little bit odd to note that thus far this season, Going Racing only has one win of any kind here in 2026, that being at the Roar. So that didn't even count towards championship points. So gotta wonder exactly what the feeling is in that Ferrari stable. I think those Ferraris, at least from what we've seen so far, may be the class of the field.
Oh, we have problems as looking like
leader.
Yeah, the overall race leader is off the road.
Oh dear. Oh no, what exactly went down? That was heading his way off out of left hook of 4 through 5 right before the snake section, right at the end of the first sector. I was worried about the lap traffic encounters, and I think that may have come back to bite him. Yes, it did.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one.
I believe that was a 90 involved.
That is one of the Fisher Motorsport entries. Oh, I don't know if he actually I think he may have just lost it on the curb. I don't think they touched each other.
That is catastrophic either way, and has brought in a little bit of dicing out there on the racetrack. We've got battles now in LMP2. Drivers sensing an opportunity. Let's look at that side-by-side with the 90 involved in that. Nothing the 90 could do to try and get out of harm's way. There's contact being made. Paddy Racing trying to pull off a bump and run.
Oh, dear. That is just giving Ryan Steinhoff a black flag for the incident limit. So going to be forced into pit road at the moment for the number 90 entry, and he is going to be livid with that.
Yeah, and the first run-through lap traffic has been a dramatic one already. I can't necessarily say that I'm surprised, though. This is an old-school racetrack. I talked about it opening way back in the 50s, got refreshed back in the year 2000, but there weren't many changes. Really, the only alterations that were done here were just rebuilding the facilities that had been knocked down in the track's abandoned period, and maybe just changing one turn. That is just about it. This racetrack still remains just about unaltered from when it was built in the 1950s and remains unaltered for the brief period of time in which it basically served as a ring road around a chicken farm.
Garrett Spence down pit road as well with the LMP2 Going Racing entry. Not sure why he is into the box this time by. Meanwhile, for 12th place in GT Pro, battle up for grabs here as the other Fisher Motorsports entry going to war against Double Stint Racing. That's Unitronic in the Porsche, trying to go around the right side into the roller coaster section. In contact on a spin, Chris Schreiber off the road. Whether or not he had overlap, you could argue was debatable, but I feel like that Porsche had the line to make that stick, and the BMW didn't give him any space to work with.
And that right there is the pitfall of going side-by-side, heading off into the roller coaster section as Ian Lawrence Brown in that Bloccamatory 183 Aston Martin jumps into 4th in GT Pro. Yeah, turn 14, the roller coaster. It's a roller coaster of emotions whenever drivers go side-by-side through there. There's a pang of anxiety and fear. There's usually a little bit of jubilation. For some, there could be disappointment if the move is put on clean. Sometimes, though, there could be anger arise through there as well.
Fury Sim Sports Matthew Luke side by side at the moment with Kakoya Lissette headed down the front straightaway and into turn number 1, and that's going to be the pass done for 8th place in your LMP2 field. Good stuff there for Matthew Luke and Fury Sim Sport, punching their way a bit further up the grid. Next target, Vision 1 Motorsports and Rico Kohlmeyer, who is right now half a second up the road.
And switching our attention to right behind those drivers in class, after that moment there, which I did look back, I believe there was contact between the Grow Racing Team blue number 14 in LMP2 from the race lead at that point, and the other number 90 Porsche in your GT3 AM category. I don't wonder what may come out of that once this race is said and done. Race Control can have a look at it. But with that 14, he's now running in 10th. We talked about him being quick in practice, second fastest in practice, top qualifier, top driver in warm-up, and leading the race comfortably early on. Now this is going to be a bit of a venture off into the unknown. Gotta wonder how things are going to work out for him.
He took the look on board, and it does look like he may have just caught him. It wasn't by much, but it doesn't need to be with these prototypes. Just that little nudge is all it takes, and this is an absolute hornet's nest headed up into the roller coaster section at the moment. The LMP2s trying to fight their way past all of this GT traffic. They're having a rough time of it. Catch them at one of the worst places on the racetrack for it.
Oh, look at that. That is, just so nervous to look at, even from our perspective in the broadcast booth. I feel like my bones are sitting in vinegar as they make contact, heading down the start-finish straightaway. Maybe going to have to split the difference with that lapped car. This is going to be a nightmare that these drivers have to contend with for the next 2 hours and change.
Boy, and we nearly saw Pat Engineering and Dominic Eisberg for Twin Turn SR by Rebecca Bornheim wiping each other out as well, coming down the front straightaway. They definitely made contact. Wasn't enough to disrupt the run, but it was enough to get these guys thinking a little bit. Battle for ninth right behind them, by the way. This is SR Motorsports and Wolf Motorsports. Sim Racing is off the road. Going to go to Mercedes and spell a quick end to the battle.
Those there three wide hang under the bridge. I have a good feeling about this with that little squabble for 6th in GTM. Wastegate Racing able to throw the block on flight level racing. You know, there's many sections of this racetrack where you can go side by side, primarily straightaways, but through some of the turns, especially all through the S's, you're kind of asking for some sort of massive accident to go on there. These drivers do have the benefit of a lot of runoff areas. Speaking of, that's a 94 Jason Smith in the SWF Motorsports Porsche Oran. That's heading out of South Bend.
Coming back onto the racetrack just shy of Oak Tree. This is what happened to him. Oh, he had a hit from the left-hand side. I think the Fury Simsport entry caught him. He sure did. Caught him on the rear.
And, you know, of all the portions of this track, Nolan, where you can catch up to lap traffic as a prototype contender, I would argue that that turn South Bend is maybe the worst of the lot. Turn number 10 around this track, medium to high speed. You can really tell the pace differential between those cars. I'll hit the books and really get the numbers together, but the speed differential heading through there is absolutely mahoosive because the downforce differential between a prototype and a GT3 car is huge.
Speaking of downforce being huge, there's a huge look to the inside. Visual Motorsports again trying for one of those sliding passes. Flight Level Racing gets the over-under through turn 1, and Vision 1 just can't get the hammer down, spinning the wheels on the exit of turn 1. Fighting their way back through 2, 3, and now down to 4, right behind the number 3 entry from GTM. That is 8th place. BMW M Team TSR of Chris Cadiz that these guys are right behind at the moment. So the battle for 8th and LMP2 still very much alive as they try to find a way through, but that BMW just making himself as wide as a box truck. Now, oh my goodness, the number 11 again trying to look for the inside. No room.
Yeah, and catching up to this real tough section, this is going to be troublesome for Vision 1 Motorsports trying to get past that lap traffic there, that GT3 car. They back out of it. I hit the books and followed some of your top runners, including your race leader at the moment, Alfonso Reese, behind the wheel of the 87 car in LMP2. The prototypes are going about 135 miles an hour at the apex of turn 10. The GT3s are going about 116. Now, that doesn't seem like a huge pace differential, only 20 miles an hour. But in the heat of battle, heading off through a turn like that, that is completely blind on both entry and exit. That turn is so hard to psych out. That is a disgusting level of speed differential between those cars.
Second place up for grabs in GT Pro as Virtual Power Sim Racing taking a 2-tire excursion off track on the right-hand side. Rick Team Racing's Bernardo Silva trying to run down Luis Cunha. Oh, and look at the Porsche sliding all 4 wheels as well as they make their way towards that bridge out of left hook.
Just skating around, heading out of the turns. Gotta wonder how these drivers are feeling grip-wise. I'm sure the grip is pretty much just non-existent. We talked about the track temperatures. They have actually cooled off a little bit. Still 119 degrees Fahrenheit. The way that I judge it is, how comfortable would the track temperatures be if you had to walk around this track barefoot? 119 degrees would not feel comfortable at all, so these tires definitely not feeling comfortable either.
On board with Bernardo Silva, you can get a good look at the slipstream up the rise. Now, granted, it's a lot of slipstream, but it's not enough to realistically close that portion in front of him. I think definitely right now more kitted out for high speed as opposed to downforce at some portions of the racetrack. And Matthew Luke has just spun off the road.
Blinking in and out there. I gotta wonder if some connection issues maybe led to him going off the track in the first place. We'll take a look back to know for sure. But it's not the first time we've seen an LMP2 go off the track, and it's contact heading off into Oak Tree. Just a matter of going side by side through there. It always ends in disaster, unfortunately for Matthew Luke. The second worst part about going off the track there, A, there's not a lot of runoff area, and B, if you do stop in the runoff area without hitting the wall, you're going to be stopped on the side of the road for what feels like forever waiting to rejoin.
Josh Goen coming down. Well, Nicholas Goen bringing the car in for a pit. No, sorry, that's Jack Hedgecox that brought the car down in for a pit stop, and Josh Goen just humped into the car. So a new driver coming in for Goen very early on, not even half an hour deep into this race.
You know, we saw a similar call made last time out at Laguna Seca, Nolan, where your eventual winners in class ended up coming in for a very early stop. That was SimCity Racing. They were able to make that work. Now I got to wonder whether the same could be done here. This is a very different racetrack, and with that comes a very different opportunities to do fuel saving as Alfonso Reese, your leader overall, having to drive off the dirt to get past some of your top runners in GT.
Well, Goen and GT Pro will need another driver swap tonight before this race is over. Minimum drive time is only 10 minutes, yes, but the maximum drive time for one driver is an hour and 55. So with 2 hours 13 to go, they have to have at least one more driver swap in play before the end of the night. And I'm willing to bet after Josh Goen completes his stint, they're going to let Jack Hedgecox, definitely one of the pace setters for that team, take that car through to the checkered flag.
Yeah, I was already able to put it up towards the front of the field, so gotta think that that may be a good call. Keep the drivers refreshed, keep them rejuvenated, give them a little bit of break after setting that qualifying time, after running through the chaos of the first portion of the race. Gotta wonder how much is taken out of these drivers with those lap traffic encounters, not just for top class LMP2 drivers, but for the GTs as well. I always say, talking about lap traffic, that it takes two to tango. Not only is it the LMP2s maybe having to compromise their lines, compromise their speeds, the GT3s really have nowhere to go. I always say whenever we're running all three of the classes that the LMP2s are maybe the roughest sort of class to be involved in, because they have to deal with getting overtaken by the GTPs and overtaking the GT3s. Now, though, the GTP's not in the picture here for this race. I'm going to say that the GT3s have the worst matter of traffic, because not only is it the biggest class, not only is it probably the most competitive class. I mean, LMP2 is pretty feisty as well. But the GT3s, there's so many different things for these drivers to consider in their own little heat of battle as is. You throw lap traffic encounters in that, LMP2s coming up to the back of them like Exocet missiles, and forget about it. That'll wear on your head more quickly than most things. That's basically race car driver Chinese water torture.
For a moment, all three classes were under a second for all their class leads. That is still the case for GT Pro and LMP2, but there was just a massive breakup in GTM as Goen was able to get ahead of Brandon Chan, courtesy of some lap traffic that was working their way through. This is the four-way battle for 9th in GTM that we're keeping tabs on. SR Motorsports, OVNS's Racing, Wolf Motorsports, Simracing, and Vulture Motorsports, 9th through 12th, all under a blanket as they try to fight this one out. These guys have been kind of running single file here, Ron, for I would say the last 20 minutes easily. They've not really been keen on going for overtakes. They're just, I think, letting this race come to them, seeing what falls their way. And trouble. Diego Rodriguez off the road for Frida Sport. And the 912 has issues. Just lost the tail end, dipped 2 wheels into the grass on the left-hand side, and around goes Diego Rodriguez. Luckily does not make any contact, and so he is able to pull things back underneath him. I think we may have lost Ron Mons. We'll see if we can get him back before too much longer, but right where this is all going on, Kikoa Lisette going off the road, and speaking of, there's Ron, and here goes Blockamatori Simsport off the road to the same corner.
Yeah, I blame my mixing board. The light that tells me whether my microphone is muted is covered by my mic stand. That's on me. But unfortunate to see these drivers start to dive off the track, as that was big. 2 drivers sliding off the track there, and LMP2 first hitting the wall, and Blockamatori sliding up off the racetrack. That entry heading off into NASCAR Bend is troublesome as, oh my goodness me.
That was one of Sim Racing's Corvette taking out Red Lab Competition. They're going to back it hard into the wall for the 154, and that is it. Caution is out for the first time today. We have a safety car on the course.
An absolute pandemonium as of recent. That was what, about 5, 6, maybe 7 cars going up off the track in the span of about 5 minutes. That was wild stuff. It settles this race down for the very first time, and these drivers get to tackle recently changed full-course yellow procedures here for this series. So the drivers will not have to worry about the pace car pulling away and yellow flag conditions remaining. We'll talk about that a little bit later on here under this yellow. But Nolan, we were expecting the race to maybe divulge into chaos once these tires start to feel an absolute agony as they are right now. And sure enough, gets put on full display with drivers spearing up off the racetrack.
There was the flight level racing car going off in earnest, and right behind them, Blockamatori Simsport. Looked like they kind of maybe just dipped 2 wheels into the grass, and then this was the crash that puts us under the safety car for the first time here this afternoon, as it was Red Lab Competition trying to go around World of Sim Racing Team, and it looks like the Corvette just loses the back end when he got hung up on the grass and the curbing. Cleans out. The 552 LMP2 goes spinning around, and oh my goodness, a vicious hit into the wall, and look at how far back that rebounds Red Lab Competition.
And just bouncing around as if that Armco is made out of the same rubber that tire barrier is. We'll take a look at another look at this. I said a bit earlier on that side-by-side racing, even for just a single class, is brutal all through the S's. Multi-class racing, you just can't make it work at all. Huge hits for both drivers, one with a completely destroyed front end for the prototype bouncing off the wall. Unfortunately for that World of Sim Racing Corvette, that's going to be major damage. They'll probably leave them down in pit lane for quite a long ways. As the problem with that is, it's kind of like whenever you watch the Winter Olympics and see like the luge or like whatever the like bobsled events, where they always talk about it. If you lose a 1/10 of a second at the top of the track, it's going to snowball from there, and you're going to end up losing like 1.2 seconds down at the bottom. Here, though, if you mess up the approach through the first turn, you're going to be shallow through the next part, and it's just going to snowball out of control through there. Now, what caused that to take place was a side-by-side racing. That, honestly, I think was ill-advised from the prototype. You just can't get a move done through there. It is not even asking. That is begging on your hands and knees for trouble.
Shout out, by the way, to our iRacing track marshals. We're going to slow this down, and as things go wrong, as you can see, staring down the LMP2 as it comes towards them at about a few hundred kilometers an hour, unfazed, as always.
Yeah, that is just the steely-eyed stare looking there as an LMP2 approaches. That's a lot of faith in that Armco barrier. I would not even have that much trust in a concrete wall.
Hey, those Armco barriers haven't failed our iRacing marshals once on iRacing. I'd be confident in them.
Yeah, touche. I actually heard a story one time from a gentleman that I've done a couple of broadcasts with, who's been able to be in the world of racing for a while, including being here at VIR for many events. At one time, he was sharing the story of back in, I think, 2013, a wreck here, and it may have been Grandam at the time, potentially. Ooh. And a driver speared off the track and actually vaulted over the tire bundle and ended up right next to the marshal stand. Thankfully, nobody was hurt.
Was it a Porsche?
I believe so.
I think I know the one you're talking about, because it scared the camera operator off after he turned his camera to catch the car coming towards him.
Yeah, I believe the guy that I was having a chat with who shared that story, he was involved with a broadcast of that race, and he was sharing the other cameraman's story, and also shared a story of his mother calling him later on because he didn't specify exactly what he was doing on the broadcast. He was worried that his mother was actually, yeah, it was a whole story. But look at this impact into the wall. That's...
It's how far back it shoots as well that really puts emphasis on how violent of a hit that was.
Yeah, it's like a Looney Tunes rebound there.
You know what that reminds me of? Daytona 24, when we had one of our GTPs have a hung throttle, go spearing off, strike the tires in the National Horseshoe, rebound back onto the racetrack, and went tumbling as a result because it collected 2 others.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any sort of bad rebounds that I've ever seen. There's a couple of series that I broadcast where it's sort of a tradition once the checkered flag falls where everybody just throws it into the barrier once things are done. But in terms of like a general rebound off the wall, that was pretty wild. You know, I will say one thing that I noticed fairly recently. It was a broadcast I was doing just the other day at Daytona, and the tire bundles heading off through the Le Mans chicane have actually been changed ever so slightly to have a little bit of give, a little bit of rebound. I forget what the proper technical term is as to the change that was made to give them just a little bit of springiness. I remember my co-commentator told me what the word is, and I responded in kind by saying that the last big word I learned like that was mayonnaise. But I don't think that anything could have saved that car from having that vicious hit. Thankfully, he stayed on the racetrack. If he rebounded into the road, we probably would have seen an LMP2 car strike the moon.
And there you saw the world of sim racing team's rear bumper. Look at that. That whole tail end of the car completely exposed. That is going to be ruining the downforce of the tail of that car. That Corvette has got to come down pit road for extensive damage repairs.
Yeah, that is going to sting. Thankfully, though, I think the only thing that helps is not having to worry too much about engine cooling. It would be even better if he could drive backwards, but that's not quick.
You talk about violent rebound crashes. We had one not so much out so much as up just not last I keep want to say last night. I don't know why I keep forgetting that we didn't have any shows on Friday night. On Thursday night with the Speed Cup Series, Jesse Gordon on just lap 6. Cell spun off at turn 2, careened into the inside wall at about 170 miles an hour. Hit the wall so hard that he barrel rolled twice down the back straightaway because of it.
That sounds absolutely brutal. I always thought that the worst barrier hits that you can do on iRacing were the pit attenuators. I remember one time I got my car stuck in those yellow sand barrels of despair and just pinged me off into outer space. That's a pretty bad shot. That, or if anybody has ever tried to vault over the barrier on turn 1 of the Charlotte Roval and has nosed it like straight into the tire barrier and just kind of like pole vault over the wall, you know that's a pretty solid hit as well.
For those just tuning in, this crash is the reason why we are under the first safety car of the day for an absolutely massive crash. That was coming around, I believe, through turn 8B and into turn 9, just shy of the South Bend, careened into one of the Marshall stands. The Armco doing its job as we keep things very much underway. 38 minutes are in the books of this 2-hour and 40-minute sprint race. And for the first time, the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix is brought to a screeching halt. We are going to take ourselves with a quick step back, and when we return, racing action continues on Green Flag TV. Stay with us. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Green Flag TV. We are currently about 40 minutes deep into the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix. You are watching the VSCA Sports Car Championship live on Green Flag TV. My name is Ola Ramble alongside Ron Mons, bringing you all the action from start to finish. It has been a doozy of a race to kick things off. Taking one more look at the schedule on where things are at currently in this championship. Right now, we are working our third sprint race of 6 of the season. The Homestead Miami Speedway Road Course will be the next one up on May 9th, followed by the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park on May 30th as well. This race has certainly had it all so far. It's had the thrills, and now it has the spills, and now we get set to see who is going to be where. Pit stops should, or I'd imagine pit road should be either open by now or it will be opening pretty soon here. First round of wave buys has been completed, and that does entail that we will be getting our yellow flag pit stops before too much longer. I'd imagine for a lot of drivers, especially the LMP2s, this would be prime opportunity for a pit stop.
Yeah, this would be amazing. So right now, these drivers probably already were thinking about strategy before we had that yellow flag, but this is just going to turn up that wick even more. One thing that we have already talked about at length here on this show is the matter of strategy. You know, the track temperatures have been scorching. That is, I would say, fairly reasonable to talk about. We saw 122 degrees at the start of this race. It's just going to snowball from there. As we go a little bit later on, as the field now piling down pit lane. First round of pit stops throughout, most of the field drivers were already coming into the pits beforehand, but now gotta consider the prospect of drivers unified in the pit call and also doing some driver swaps as well. And following the field as they head their way down into pit lane. Some drivers staying out, though, choosing to run a different play call, potentially. That, or they are just trying to get their lap back as everybody piling into the pits. That's a big miss there from one of the Blockamatori Aston Martins there. You can see backing up down pit lane massively. They're at risk of maybe getting themselves disqualified if they backed up a little bit too far. That is an odd moment to have happen, to be sure. But right now, seeing everybody down in pit lane, up on the jacks are going to go. Maybe some new drivers getting behind the wheel of our cars, including some of your top runners in the field. Here's the number 14, who was your leader a bit earlier on, had an incident with the lap car that took them out of contention, at least for the moment, dropped them down into 10th. If anybody is happy about this yellow, it is that number 14 team.
Interestingly enough, this actually puts Double Stint Racing's Chris Schreiber as the overall race leader, believe it or not, because of how this pit stop cycle has panned out, because they did not come down pit road. They were the only car that stayed out.
Yeah, so that is quite fascinating. Gotta wonder if they will maybe file it into the pits between now and the end of this, but look at that, 13 spots gained since the drop of the green flag. I'm sure that team is probably hoping that this race could just stop the count now, but still have a long way left to go here. But gotta say, there's been a lot of drivers throughout this pack that have stood out to me. Many of them in our GT3 classes. It has been competitive. It has been, brilliantly entertaining. And we've gotten to see a whole different raft of drivers contend for spots. Now with many of these teams doing driver swaps as well, it's going to add in a whole new dynamic to it.
Alexander Schneider into the car for Track Limit Sim Racing. Alfonso Race remaining in the car for Rick Team Racing. Adam Jones Mailhot still in the car. Garrett Spence is into the car. So it looks like a bit of a 50-50 call, depending on which drivers want to swap contenders out. Josh Goen still in the car for Goen Racing. No surprises there. Ian Lawrence Brown remained in the car for Blocker Victoria Simsport. Sean Hatfield still in the car for Vulture Motorsports. Stefan Knobs has jumped into the car for Unitronic Fisher Motorsport, so they have gone through a little bit of a driver swap here as well. Michael Adamczyk still leads in the flight level racing crew for GTM as well. It's interesting to see how so many drivers did not opt to go for the driver swaps. They feel content keeping their starting drivers into the race, and well, we have our second round of wave buys taking place now.
Yeah, so that's going on right now. I'm trying to think back to that round of pit stops. We did see a Block of Motore car end up overshooting their pit stall quite dramatically and having to reverse what felt like half the length of pit lane. Now, anybody who is history buff of Formula One will remember what happened to Nigel Mansell when he did that many moons ago. Ended up netting him a disqualification from that race, which may have cost him a good shot of getting some good results throughout that season. Thankfully, though, we're not seeing any drivers with any outstanding penalties. The only driver with anything other than a green flag next to their name is Red Lap Competizione, who we saw smack that wall. Kevin Burnett was behind the wheel at that time. The meatball flag is still out for them, and they have now fully towed back to pit lane. Just a matter of getting that damage repaired, which, we still have an hour and 54 minutes left to go. I think they may be able to get repaired for the final 3 laps.
Well, for the time being, drivers are still pacing their way around. Flight level racing and Michael Adamczyk right now leading the pacing line as it stands. Chris Treiber, just a few cars down the road, is the overall race leader. Alexander Schneider leading the LMP2 field right now for Track Limits Sim Racing as well. Let's take you through some of the races coming up here on Green Flag TV. Later on tonight, it is going to be the SRA IEL Truck Series taken to the Rockingham Speedway at 7:55 p.m. Eastern Time. Tomorrow, it's a doubleheader between the Blazing Metals Truck Series headed to Avondale, Arizona to go racing at Phoenix alongside the Motor City Racing IMSA Championship. Same class as we are seeing today, but they will be racing at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya in the Iberian Peninsula, and they'll be including the GTPs into the mix. A new chapter started for the Belgian Sim Racing Federation as the 2026 Formula 4 Championship is set to kick off. One of the flagship races coming up next week here, Ron. 4 20-minute races, 2 for the AMs, 2 for the pros. Going to be an absolutely thrilling afternoon. While the CIL UNOH Cup Series will head to Homestead Miami Speedway, Aspire Racing will hit the street circuits at Long Beach, followed by the Mid-Atlantic Racing Series at Nashville Super Speedway. And then, of course, later on that evening, Omega Sorel at North Wilkesboro. So plenty to be excited about coming up over the next few days. While we are gearing up to go racing once again, 1 hour, 52 minutes, and 35 seconds to go. And this is the point where the drivers start to get, I think, a little bit twitchy here. A lot of contenders are going to be watching the iRacing pace car eagerly, waiting to see when those lights go out. That's usually going to be a good indicator of when we anticipate this race to go back to green flag conditions. So far, you got a good number of cars. I mean, we're still talking, 43 contenders in total that made the start of this race, 42 of which are still circulating the racetrack.
Despite how wild it has been, we haven't seen too many drivers just fall out of the race completely. I think the only driver that could be close to it is that 552 team who had that crash to put us under yellow for the first time here. Now, though, that we've got a restart, Nolan, and the opening stint jitters out of a lot of these teams, gotta wonder whether it's just going to divulge into chaos once more, or whether things are going to be a bit more tame. I think these drivers will be feeling confident. I mentioned this a few moments ago, right as we saw the pit stops, and I'll bring it up once more. The track temperatures have continued to drop as we've gotten a little bit later on here, currently at 2:53 in the afternoon in sim time. So currently sitting at 117 degrees Fahrenheit for those track temperatures, which is down about 5 degrees Fahrenheit, or probably about 2°C from where we started this race. So it's still not great. The tires are going to be feeling the burn for sure, but we are getting closer to that good operating window where these tires are going to be feeling better, and in turn, the drivers are going to be feeling better too.
I'm sure the drivers they've been able to more or less, I think, get things kind of settled down with how this track has evolved over the course of this race. It has been a very much an evolving racetrack. It was blisteringly hot at the start. I mean, it still kind of is. I mean, we're still looking at, close to 120 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, but it's a little bit more manageable. But I think especially the LMP2s, right? I mean, you and I both saw how much they were dancing around when they were trying to go for lunge, especially into turn one and into Oak Tree. It's never a good feeling having a car doing that. I'm sure it feels satisfying when it works, but in the moment, that's the moment where you're holding onto the wheel perhaps a little bit tighter than normal.
Yeah, no, it's that deal of dancing with the devil. Driving on, I would say, frankly, driving on a greasy and overly hot racetrack is maybe even worse than driving on a racetrack that's too cold, because eventually on a racetrack that's too cold, you can warm up those tires, get it into the groove. Out there on the racetrack where your tires are overheated just because you turned into the first corner on your out lap, there's nothing that you could do there. There is really no path forward. So I would argue that these conditions that these drivers have had to deal with so far are maybe the worst for a driver, at least in the sim. In real life, that would probably be exemplified even more, because not only would you have the discomfort of tires that overheat whenever the wind touches them in the wrong direction, you'd also be feeling quite miserable in the cockpit. I remember one time back in my karting days, was running an event at Wells Fargo Center here in the city of Philadelphia, now Xfinity Mobile Arena, in the parking lot, which had just been resurfaced a few years ago. So it was still virtually, like sheer blacktop that we were driving on, baking under the Philly sun in the middle of the summer. I felt like my feet were burning working on the track later on that day, let alone how the tires felt when I was actually driving out there on circuit. When you get to that, it is absolutely brutal, and these drivers had to feel the burn. Those tires have certainly felt the burn, but now that things are getting a bit more calm with the situation with the track temperature, it will give these drivers a slight and hopefully not fully fleeting sense of confidence when this restart comes around.
Take one more look for those just tuning in. This is why we have been under the safety car for the last 20 minutes or so. As Red Light Competition and World of Sim Racing team having a huge coming together up over the rise, and a big hit into the wall for the 552 puts him down and very much out of this race with a brutal hit into that wall, and never something you want to see, especially this early on, as the World of Sim Racing Corvette just lost control on the curb and nowhere for the LMP2 to go.
Yeah, and every single time I see that man standing there triumphantly next to the gazebo, is that a gazebo there that he was stuck behind? But
close enough.
So yeah, I'm not too familiar with various small structures of that. It's certainly not a shed. Maybe an awning, but an awning's usually stuck to a bigger building. But either way, those steely eyes looking at that car coming close to him. I wish I had that level of bravery dealing with a small insect in my room. I once had a bug land on my head during a broadcast, and I damn near crashed my keyboard over top of it to try and kill the bug.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not the most reasonable when it comes to bugs. See, my problem was as a kid, this was back when I was, I think, 5 or 6 years old. There was a group of yellow jackets that had formed a nest right by the gate to get into the backyard. One day, after playing in the backyard, I closed the gate rather vigorously, shook the entirety of the gate structure, which shook the ground and scared the yellow jackets, who then came out and attacked me. Now, anybody who's ever had to deal with yellow jackets, you know that they are the spawn of Satan in flying wasp form. So ever since then, I've never had a good relationship with bugs.
I mean, that's valid. I got stung when I was
I've
a
actually,
kid.
we can share the bug stories now under this yellow.
Well, we won't have much time to. Safety car does look like it will be in this lap. The lights have been extinguished. The class sort completed. And Ron about to go right back at it after spending, by my count, about the last 23 minutes and change under the yellow.
Yeah, many new drivers getting into these cars as well, focusing on just the LMP2 runners for now, but it certainly went on with the GTs. Your current race leaders, Alexander Schneider behind the wheel of the Track Limits Racing Thunderbolt effort. He's been able to hop into that car now. Gregory Meismer was the original driver at the drop of the green flag. Alfonso Reese still behind the wheel of the at one point race leading number 87 Rick Team Racing stable. Adam Joseph Malhort was behind the wheel of that car beforehand, along with Garrett Spence. But other drivers have been able to get some driver swaps. Vision One Motorsports has now Damian Benke behind the wheel of that car after Rico Kohlmeyer brought it around to take the green flag. So a little bit of driver swaps sprinkled throughout the field, not only in the top class, but as well in the GTs going racing. Now has Josh going behind the wheel after Jack Hedgecox actually got out of the car as we were still under green, if my memory serves me correctly. So some driver swaps worth a note as we come towards this restart. A changed restart, too, with different rules.
And thankfully, Chris Schreiber was sent to the GT Pro field as well to regame with his competitors. He will not be leading us to the green flag. I kind of figured that was going to be the case, but you never quite know, by the way. Red Light Competition has put Sergio Ostas into the car. They might be looking to try to make their way back out onto the racetrack, because remember, they do need to hit a minimum race length requirement before they are allowed to score any kind of points on the afternoon. So expect to see them coming out onto the track before too much longer. But Alexander Schneider will be leading the way through the final couple of corners, and we are gearing up to do this all over again. Green flag in the air as we hightail it down towards turn number 1. And it's going to be a bit of a dogfight now into the opening couple of corners already. The fight for third is on in LB2 as Garrett Spence round the outside of Twin Turn S. Robert DeBecca Bornheim. Not going to go his way, though. Oh, and calamity over at turn 1 as one of the Porsches spun around. That was the 99 entry of Luis Cunha from Virtual Power Sim Racing.
Oh, now heading off into turn number 3, still seeing some drivers go for moves on one another. That's a Porsche on Aston Martin squabble, off now into 4. Figured that was going to work out well, and work out well it does, but didn't work out into turn number 1. I think we were very lucky, the fact we negotiated that first turn at the start of this race without any drama. Second go of asking, though, on this first restart of the day, and trouble breaks down the GTs.
Just a single car spin. Otherwise, we're able to keep this one under wraps. Making our way into Oak Tree. Oh, and a huge slide again for Alexander Schneider. That could give Alfonso Race the momentum he needs to try to make the move for the race lead. He's thinking about it. He's getting down to 0.2 of a second. Is that close enough to attack it up into turn 13? It will not be. He actually lifts out of the throttle and allows for Schneider to retain that spot. Kind of makes it clear, I'm not going to attack you into this corner. He recognizes that would not be a very wise move unless he could get further alongside.
Yeah, no, to get a move to stick heading off into turn 14 and not have yourself stuck in the tire barrier on the outside of that turn, you've got to make your presence known right away. Really, at the halfway or 2/3 mark heading down that back straightaway, you need to be fully alongside. You need to say, okay, I'm going for this. I'm going to try and take that spot from you if you don't mind. Usually race car drivers do mind, and that's the reason why disaster sometimes breaks out, as we see slowing down there in the GT3s. Drivers trying to negotiate. Nate Bogus behind the wheel of the Superstar Racing Team number 4 car, who's trundling now into the pits very slow on entry.
And he's not the only one. Block of Victoria's Import 283 entry into pit road as well. So was Vulture Motorsports Aero Erexoy down into the box as well. So a lot of drivers making their way into pit road early on here on the restart. Everybody else at the moment fanning out. So we make our way through the opening few corners once again on the second lap of this restart. Driver swap for Superstar Racing. By the way, Thomas Spencer jumping into the car for the McLaren.
Yeah, so odd to see these drivers pull it down into pit lane. Now, I wonder if they're maybe hedging their bets about some sort of major drama on that restart, potentially putting us under yellow again. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure if I get that call, honestly, Nolan. I was looking to see whether they had a black flag, which none of them did. That was just a pure, strategic call. I'm not sure exactly what I think about that.
Sometimes you have a strategy and you just want to stick with it. Maybe they missed the chance to come down pit road. You never know. There could be a multitude of reasons as to why they had to come down pit road when they did. Battle for the lead is on once again. Rick Team Racing and Track Limit Sim Racing still engaged 1 and 2 on the racetrack as they cruise down to turn 1. There's the look as Rick Team Racing's Alfonso Reyes trying to go around the long way of Alexander Schneider. Can he hold this one around the outside of turn 1? He's still pedaling the wheels. Both drivers spinning them up as they exit off of turn 1 and into 2 and 3 in NASCAR Bend. Rick Team Racing, new race leader in LMP2.
Yeah, and after the drama in the opening stage where that 14 got involved, this Rick Team Racing stable and Alfonso Reyes behind the wheel of it, he's just been confident behind the wheel of that car, and confidence is key at VIR. As we take a look now at a battle for 6th in GT Pro. Porsche on Porsche squabble right now. That's Matco Fisher Motorsports and Vulture Motorsports side by side. As the iRacing Today Motorsports Aston Martin looking to stick their nose into that battle as well. This is a group of heavy hitters in this battle, so this is going to get real dicey.
Yeah, plenty of drivers trying to see if they can make something happen here. And just like that, Alfonso Reyes dropped out of the race lead and could look to be out of the podium here before too much longer. Wrong goes, here comes Going Racing, and Garrett Spence punched them out of 3rd place.
Yeah, that's going to be a spot gain. Oh, no, fighting back down there. Dive down into turn number 14. First time we've really seen a driver be able to get that move done. Pure anger, allowing them to get that spot. So let's take a look at it. It's heading off into Oak Tree. We talked about the challenge through this turn. That's a drop of the curb, drop of the wheel on the outside there midway through this section. And that's just going to cause them to spear off the track, dropping down the order like there's no tomorrow. Still holding on to 3rd, still a second away from your race leader. But that's definitely a wake-up call.
Could have been a disaster, though, in that corner. I mean, that could have been easily a potential race ender for them. So lucky that wasn't any worse than what it ended up being. You also saw Going Racing just drop one spot. Damian Benke powering through for the Visual Motorsports number 11 crew. So Benke, with the podium in sight, wants to go. And problems as we got Ryan Huff off the road. That's your GTM leader that has just dropped it and lost the lead.
More drivers falling into trouble as coming down pit lane right now. This is fascinating to see the mistakes begin to pile up. We saw it before we grabbed that yellow, but I think that trend is just continuing on. These drivers struggling, trying to find any way in the book to hold on to it.
Oh, sorry. That was actually the Ford Mustang leader that came down pit road. So the Mustang was the leader. He came down into the box, and that is why we saw that change for the lead in GTM.
So more drivers filing into the pits. That's still interesting. I wonder if they did miss their chance. Race control usually does mandate exactly when the pit lane is open or closed. So maybe they did miss that envelope and now having to pay for it here with green flag stops. But still keeping a look on this ever competitive LMP2 class, the only spec category in top class sports car racing, the only spec category here in the VSCA, and it shows in situations like this. Everybody's super close, trying to get the moves put on one another as they slowly but surely catch up to the lap traffic. I think they find themselves in a good little window for now. Your race leader of Alexander Schneider has a couple of GT cars to deal with in the next half of the lap, but then he's going to reach the back of that pack, and it is going to be real tough running from there.
Chris Tribe for the Double Stint Racing after staying out under the safety car. They are now into pit road, leaving the race lead in the hands of Josh Goen with Bernardo Silva. The other Rick Team Racing contender fighting for a class win at the moment, trying to put him under fire. So RCR fighting for wins in both LMP2 and GT Pro at the moment. And they have got their hands full in both categories here, don't they?
Yeah, they're holding on to quite a nice level of comfort currently, but there's still a long way left to go here. An hour and 35. Got to worry about those pit stops. Some drivers still maybe having to get behind the wheel of that car too. So there's a lot of stuff that is going to go down between now and the end. So it's definitely not clear-cut through to the fall of the checkered, but currently, if you can start off this race on a good note and finish off the first hour like we did about 5 minutes ago with either a lead or a podium spot or whatever it may be, that is going to be good. That Go-In Racing team currently leading in GT Pro, a team that I'm keeping my eyes out for. We talked about how surprising it is that outside of a win for that team in the GTM category at the Roar before we got the season up and rolling, they've yet to visit victory lane. They've been quick, very quick, but we haven't seen that Go-In Racing Ferrari bag a victory quite yet. Maybe today here in the woods of Virginia, this could be a shot to finally break through.
Yes, sir. They are really trying to make something happen here as we fight this one out through and through. Josh Go and Bernardo Silva still within 0.2 of a second for the GT Pro race lead, and you have to imagine a dive bomb is coming somewhere soon. As, we've got a big mass. There's 2 LMP2s going off the road. That's GRT
the
and Fury.
14. And that's the yellow. The yellow out once again. The 14 involved in that major damage. I think that was a broken off wheel. Matthew Luke in the Fury Sim Sport number 30, the other driver involved in that. Things going from bad to worse to even worse still for your at 1 point top class leader.
Well, this helps out Logan Giesbrecht a lot for Frida Sport. That driver just hopped into the car, and they were in the middle of pit stops when this yellow flag comes out. This could cycle them through into their class lead. Oh my goodness. Yet another major incident slows this race down. Take a look. This is what brings this incident out. As you're looking, oh my goodness, look at the twin turn SR by Rebecca Bornheim car. And I think Fury Simsport may have checked up. And Grow Racing, you just didn't get the memo.
Oh, and that is, I think, a little bit of frustration maybe boiling over in the case of the 14. Certainly upset with how things have gone so far in the first hour of this race. It looked like it could maybe be a dream day for them, and then that dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Big wall contact, massive damage for both cars. Those tire bundles, they have been changed on some tracks on iRacing, but in others, they still are not cuddly and friendly, not like a teddy bear by any means. Very unfortunate for that 14 to get caught up in that incident. I think it was just, it was probably just frustration boiling over there for Thiago Diaz after that incident earlier on. You're going to be seeing a bit of red mist when you know that you're on the back foot, when you think that you should be up towards the front and you aren't actually there. Their chances, they were already slightly wounded.
Look at this. That car wouldn't shift. He's stuck in first gear.
Oh.
Matthew Luke had a hardware failure.
Oh, that is such a shame. Falling anvils coming down on the both of them. Gotta wonder what would have broken there. Would that have just been, the shifting mechanism inside the wheel that may have gone down there? That is quite odd.
That changes the look of this entirely. So definitely not the fault of Grow Racing Team. The car in front of him couldn't shift out of first gear. I thought it was just slowing down, to allow for the twin and SR by Rebecca Bornheim car to come onto the track. Because you saw the LB2 in front of him. He was fighting side by side, and that car had gone off the road and was just trying to recover it.
Oh, that is a nightmare. Oh, that is... I'm going to reverse on the statement that I made there about the 14 maybe seeing a bit of red mist. They're certainly frustrated, and I can't blame them, but it wasn't frustration that led to that. It was just sheer misfortune. That is such a shame for both drivers involved in that because, they were putting together some mighty drives. That 30 was running quick. I wouldn't say they were a top runner throughout this race, but they were certainly showing some good pace. That 14, obviously, pace setter throughout most of the festivities here today. Early leaders, but then drama breaking out. That is such a deep, deep cut to both of those teams. And I think as well, in reference to these drivers, You know, this is a time to pounce, as this is going to be the halfway mark of the Sprint Cup races here this season. So those points are going to matter a lot. So for those teams, that's going to be a real kick in the shins.
It's hard to believe we're already at the halfway point this afternoon, isn't it? I mean, we're not quite there. We're 11 minutes away, but I mean, close enough. I mean, the point is, we've already been racing for well over an hour. I mean, this is not. I'm not used to these races going by this quickly.
You know, I think all in all, we have had a lot to talk about here in the booth between my, Yellow Jacket related trauma that we shared right before we got the last restart, the amazing racing, the occasional bits of chaos, and overall a pretty intriguing afternoon. We've had no shortage of storylines halfway through this race, which is the third of 6 of these sprint races. We're not exactly at the halfway mark yet here this season. I believe next time out at Homestead, Miami, when the series returns to Green Flag TV in less than a month's time on May the 9th, that'll be the true halfway mark of this campaign here in the 2026 Virtual Sports Car Association season. But right now these drivers are probably feeling a bit less surprised that an hour has already gone by than us. We've had a lot to talk about, which makes it feel like that time flies because we're having a whole lot of fun here on this show. These drivers, though, I think that added stress is probably just making it seem like this race is sludging along.
Well, what we can do right now, because we have a little bit of a time here under the yellow flag, don't we? We can get the chance to get a big look from top to bottom at how this entire field looks at the moment. So let's take a step back and we will show you how things line up at the moment here around this racetrack. We'll start things off in LMP2. Right now, it is Alexander Schneider leading the way in the LMP2 category. Alfonso Reyes for Rick Team Racing stands right behind him in second place on the grid. Adam Joseph Milha back in third. He is up 4 spots tonight. Garrett Spence from Going Racing into the number 4 spot. Damian Banky's Visual Motorsports entry down in P number 5. He is also up 4. Dominic Eisberg from Twinter and SR by Rebecca Bornheim back in 6th. Patty Engineer, SRT, and John Santoro steady 7th. One of the few drivers down spots, down in 7th place. Kikoya Lissette, the last car on the lead lap of this field, down in 8th. And of course, you have Matthew Luke right now out of the race and in pit road down in 9th. And it is a similar story for Alarino Jorge for Grow Racing Team in 10th. And Red La Competición, Sergio Ostas right now making his way back around the racetrack and trying to see if he can score some extra points here this afternoon, Ron.
Yeah, certainly sensing an opportunity as we look now. Josh Goen is your leader at the moment in GT Pro. Part of that Goen Racing stable that are looking to bag their first win. Get a good haul of points as we get towards the end of this opening stretch for the GT Pro competitors running in every single race. Fernando Silva in P2 in class at the moment. That BMW I still think is a good car here tonight, just because of that long flat-out blast on the back half of the racetrack, probably going to help them out. Good recovery so far for Blockamatore, 183, currently running in third, in Lawrence Brown behind the wheel of that right now. Manuel Mayer behind the wheel of that Porsche. You can see right now the 44 slotted fittingly in P4 right in front of the 65 of Sean Hatfield, another Porsche. You're going to see a lot of Porsches throughout this field, the venerable platform that is. Here's another Aston Martin, only the second Aston Martin in this GT Pro field. It's Chad Dalton behind the wheel of that effort in the 157 car. Carson Allen is directly behind in another Porsche. Rare sighting of that McLaren 720S. It feels like just yesterday that McLaren 720S that Travis Liscombe Hatfield is behind the wheel of was brought into iRacing, but it has been a little bit. It was brought in back in 2024. I still remember the first time that I got to cover that way back when. Here's another Porsche. It's Steven Nobes behind the wheel of the 84 car, slotted in 9th at the moment in class. Find ourselves in a little break of Porsches as here's another. This is Alexander Newfield in the 911 machine, and Nuno Vinegre behind the wheel of the 24 in class as well, another Porsche. Now we jump back to a McLaren. This is Juka Tanko behind the wheel of the 112 car, currently slotted in 12th at the moment. Daniel Galvez. This is an Acura. This is I gotta say, honestly, bit of a rare sighting to see the Acura running in these races, but he's currently slotted in 13th at the moment, looking to be on the charge. Another Porsche's right behind, a Porsche with a penalty. Luis Kuna behind the wheel of the 77 car in class currently. I wonder what that penalty may have been for, as Curtis Schreiber is behind in a BMW, and the final car in your class is the part of that unfortunate stable of World of Sim Racing cars that ended up getting involved. It was a 152 that was involved in a crash earlier, but the 151 in Pro currently one lap down from your class leader.
In GTM, it's 499 Racing's Brandon Chan now leading the way in one of their first races here of 2026. They're having a great afternoon, aren't they? SR Motorsports is Ryan Huff sitting right behind them in number 2. BMW, M-Team TSR, and Chris Cadiz will be running back in third. The first BMW in the class as well. Wastegate Racing's Will Robertson at the moment sitting down in fourth, with Timmy Hansen and Rentley SRT down in fifth. The first Ferrari in the field, it's Going Racing and Connor Botting running number 6 at the moment. Intercom Vision Motorsports down in 7th with Dominic Smedra at the moment with their GTM entry. Off the SS Racing's Joseph Okapian will be running down in the 8th place position as well. So some more moves being made here for this field. And then, of course, you have SWF Motorsports' Rich Wright making moves as well down in the 9th place spot. Vulture Motorsports' Aero Orexoi will be sitting in 10th. Logan Giesbrecht with the 912 of Frida Sport down in 11th will be in the number 11 spot. First car outside of the top 10. For there is Jason Hildreth with the 3rd AMG Mercedes in the field, number 74 for SR Motorsports. Flight Level Racing's Jason Keddy sitting in 13th in GTM, and for there it's Stefan Janosowskis for the 283 Aston Martin for Block Laboratory Simsport, and Superstar Racing's Thomas Spencer, the last car on the lead lap in the McLaren. They also got caught out as well with this safety car. Then Claudio DeSanto for Wolf Motorsports Sim Racing, the lone car that is right now one lap down in your GTM field. So that is a look top to bottom throughout your entire 43-car grid here this afternoon, 41 of which are currently circulating this racetrack. Final class sort has just about been completed for this field, so I'd anticipate by the end of this next lap here, we should be going green, or the lap after.
Yeah, so hoping that this yellow is a little bit shorter, give these drivers more green flag running, and settle the race once again into a groove. Gotta say, even though we are under the second yellow thus far, it's been a rather tame day. You know, we have seen a little bit of franticness, don't get me wrong, a couple of incidents every now and then, but considering the tight confines of this track, Nolan, and how racy these drivers have been, and also the speed differential that I pointed out in reference to turn 10, about 20 miles an hour, the speed gap between the GT3s and the LMP2s heading off through some of the more downforce heavy and grip heavy corners. But we have seen quite smooth racing through to this point. I want to give these drivers their props, because not only have they given us rather clean racing through to this point, they've given us some amazing racing action to talk about as well. These drivers haven't just been taking it easy, going for a Saturday afternoon cruise. No, they've been, just throwing haymakers at each other, but it has been somewhat tempered in the sense that we haven't seen drivers just, absolutely going for the jugular against one another.
Yeah, these guys have been having an absolute time of it, haven't they? It has been a brutal race throughout this pack, and for the time being, Alexander Schneider, Alfonso Race, and Adam Joseph Mailhot sitting 1, 2, and 3 in an LMP2 field. Still waiting on those lights aboard the iRacing pace car to extinguish before we can get this race underway. As of right now, they are still on, and that, of course, means it is going to be just a little bit longer before we can get this race back underway here this afternoon. We're going to take ourselves a step back when we return. It is more racing action on Green Flag TV. Stay with us as you're watching the Virtual Sports Car Championship and the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix of the Virginia International Raceway. My name is Nola Ramble along Ron Mods. We'll be back with more in just a moment on Green Flag TV.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome back to Green Flag TV, where the lights are out of where the iRacing pace car. They're making their way down the back straightaway. And Ron, we are only moments away from return to the Green Flag racing action for the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix.
Yeah, and another spicy restart coming up. We saw the last restart not too terribly long ago end in disaster for some in the GT3 field. That turn one, bit of a menace at the start and restarts of races here. So got to keep an eye on your competitors to try and get a smooth go of things here. Settle this race back into the groove. You know, we had a pretty uninterrupted run of green flag racing throughout the first 40 to 45 minutes. Then we're kind of in a green yellow cycle at the moment. I think these drivers may be sick of seeing that iRacing pace car and running around at a comparative snail's pace. They're going to look to get this race back rolling, back rocking, and get a bit of green flag racing. There's still some drivers just looking to flex their muscles after getting into these cars either during the last yellow or the one beforehand.
Pace cars into pit road, and just like that, this race is back underway as Alexander Schneider hightails it towards turn one. Question is, how will the opening runs go here this time by? As into the opening corners we go. The LP2s get through safe and sound. No surprise there. Block Victoria Sinsport trying to make a 2-for-1 special down into turn number one. They're able to get Matco Fisher Motorsports. Unable, though, to get Bernardo Silva just up the road from them. And here are all the GTMs fighting their way through the same corner, but looking like we are going to get through the opening salvo of these corners clean on the restart. I say that, and Carson Allen has been turned. So once again, first laps in the books here this afternoon as SimCity Racing having issues right out of the gate. We'll get a look at what happened there in just a moment. For now, Alfonso Reyes really attacking Alexander Schneider as we officially open up the second half of this race.
And unfortunate for that driver who found themselves in the barrier there. That's a classic commentator jinx. Things are running smooth, and then drivers try and just play us like a fiddle. But up towards the front of the field, everybody keeping it smooth, everybody keeping it clean, and trying to see a fight back. We saw Alfonso Reese try and get a move done here, heading off into a roller coaster not too long ago. Now, Grant, that was kind of on the defense as the driver was trying to get a move done on him after the off-track excursion off through Oak Tree. Now, though, the shoe kind of on the other foot, but it's that same shoe that he was wearing a few moments ago. Same brand, same make, same model. I don't think shoes are determined that way as we take a look at the 71 sliding off the track. Kind of lost it through 2 into 3. That braking zone is absolutely deadly if you get it in the wrong situation.
And Alfonso Reyes trying to go down the inside at turn 1, and he's through on Alexander Schneider. Yet again, Rip Team Racing making the move at the number 1 spot. Last time he didn't hold it for long, though, because it went off course. We'll see if this time he can hold it through Oak Tree.
Yeah, so Reese looking to take that race lead, grab a hold of that torch, and just run away with it now. Schneider's going to have to worry about the challenge from the 22 directly behind. Gotta wonder how that battle maybe going to develop as we see another battle start to intensify. This is in the GT3M category. I believe that's Will Robertson in the 33 trying to sweep around the outside as a 17 of Timothy Hansen with the punch into 3.
Friendly SRT able to maintain the advantage for the number 4 spot in GTM. Manuel Mayer and Sean Hatfield continue to fight this one out as they look to duke it out 4th and 5th in the 2 Porsches. As for the lead in GT Pro, also under fire is Going Racing. Here comes Bernardo Silva. Look for the outside, trying to come back to the inside of the Oak Tree. Neither move is on, and so it is still Josh Goen leading the way.
Yeah, but will Goen hold on to that spot? Has that BMW. That's a straight line menace, and you can see him blocking like a madman, trying to hold off that run. So BMW got to try and stick it down the inside. Super shallow approach. That is playing with fire, and thankfully they keep it clean. But any more moments like that, and those drivers may find themselves off the track.
Yeah, that was not going to work no matter how you managed to slice it. So the BMW continuing its strong run up front. Ian Lawrence Brown, Manuel Mayer still running 3rd and 4th behind. Grass being kicked up into the air, and it is the top 5 all under a blanket as they fire down the front straightaway towards turn number 1. Silva will not be close enough to have a dive bomb into turn 1, but you can see that desperation started to creep into his movements more and more. Right behind them, Stefan Nobes under fire from Travis Linscomb Hatfield, but no attack is successful for telemetry racing on Unitronic Fisher Motorsports.
Yeah, these drivers still getting a bit dicey. Feeling good, though, I think, for the field. We were talking about this on the other previous restart about how the conditions had improved out there on the track. They continue to get better as we go a little bit farther along into the afternoon and approach the evening. 112 degrees Fahrenheit, your current track temperature. That is a far cry from what we started this race with. Usually 112 would be about the upper limit of some races. Here, though, that's the coolest it's been, and these drivers know that. That's the reason why they're feeling so dicey. They have the confidence to really start to push their machinery.
Well, they're going to keep working at it here. And while the fights are tight for the class leads at the moment, speed of tight for the class leads, here's Ryan Huff trying to fend off Brandon Chan. Now, Huff actually made the pass for the GTM lead a little while ago. This was the move that SRN Racing made on 499 Racing. It came in the opening half of the lap, and I believe into turn number 1. You can see they are right behind the BMW trying to find a way through. This was an attempt to pass on Chan on Afonso Race. Tried to go around the outside into turn 1, but the BMW just cut him off, and that allows the 75 to retain that class lead for now. Ian Lawrence Brown for Block Patrol Sim Sport is in, and I think this might be for a mandatory driver change here, Ron.
Yeah, no, he has been in that car for forever and a day. I believe he's been there ever since the drop of the green flag, so this had to come around at some point, and interesting to see it develop right now. Obviously, you have to abide by the rules, and we are getting close to that limit. The drivers that may have started this race have to hop out very soon, and for some teams, that's going to sting a little bit. I don't think that Blockamatori Sim Sport effort is the only team out there that has the exact same driver that started this race in that machine.
Once again, the limit that a driver can be in the car for a maximum time is 1 hour and 55 minutes. That means that by the time you reach 1 hour and 5 minutes to go, your starting driver must be out of the car. So drivers are starting to, I think they're starting to see kind of some of the back. Sorry, I think 5 minutes to go is when you have to be out of the car, I believe. I'm trying to do the reverse math of this. It's not working for me. But right now.
Oh, don't ask me. I have terrible math skills. I did Algebra 1 for like 4 years. That wasn't even down to me being stupid. That was down to the school system being stupid, but the point remained that way.
Well, Chris Cadiz and Timothy Hansen almost getting dicey for 3rd in GTM. They still have that 3-way fight, technically a 5-way fight for the class-leading GT Pro as well. Josh Goen has his work cut out for him if he wants to retain that lead.
Yeah, but I think Goen is here to race for the challenge, jump up to that race lead, and just run away with it. He hasn't really been able to run away so far, but you know that he's going to be on the defense. Big defense, heavy defense. Every single good overtaking opportunity here is heading down to the heavy braking zones as he overshot it a little bit off into turn number 1, trying to diamond off the turn ever so slightly as Bernardo Silva, trying to pull alongside, was briefly stuck on the outside line in the approach into turn 2, but not able to fight back there. there. This is getting really, really dicey because not only is Silva having to worry about getting the race lead, he's now worrying about Manuel Mayer jumping up to P2.
Oh, and Manuel Mayer off the roads, who's instead going to end up losing the podium. Doesn't need to worry about him anymore. Now he's got to worry about Sean Hatfield, who might have his number for third place in GTM as well. Oh, contact punches the McLaren around, and around goes Timothy Hansen, stacks up the entire GTM field behind. Hansen reverses off the circuit. And I think you saw the BMW attempt to redress, but with the whole field behind, there just wasn't a chance to.
Oh, and it is an alleyway as you head your way off through there.
Oh, hold on, look out.
Still rising. Oh, no.
Yeah,
oh,
that
dear.
74 is
Big
broke.
damage there.
Yeah, that's a collapsed right front suspension, I think.
Oh!
Oh, hold on. Hansen again off the road, and this time keeps it off the wall, I think. Just barely managed to save it.
God bless America. That was absolutely awesome. Dukes a hazard moment, heading off through the S's, was able to hold on to it, has a clean race car. I would doubt very highly he has clean pants, though.
That was a mental moment there from the McLaren, and somehow able to get the job done. It falls apart for SRI Motorsports, who are going to be sent towards the tail end of the field. And I would say we have to look at that again if we didn't have a battle picking up as well for GT Pro. We will get a look at that again, trust me. But we got to focus on everything else that's going on here first in case something else happens out of the blue.
Oh, it is still super dicey. These drivers looking to fight back at every single opportunity. I said that they're feeling comfortable and feeling pleased with themselves to go for the sends. Go for the sends they are. This is a moment for Timothy Hansen. There was a contact. This is side-by-side racing once again off through the S's. Has to step the steering wheel one way, then the other, then the other, then the other, bouncing around. The reflexes of a ninja to keep that car not only out of the barrier, but still holding on to a solid spot. Let's take a look at this from the rear cam. There's the contact made. Loops it around, swinging around with the pendulum effect. The fact he kept that out of the wall is unbelievable. That is a Christmas miracle held in April.
That very easily could have been pure disaster there for Rentley SRT. Talk about an absolute moment for them. Fantastic wheel work. It's just a shame that that gave them a black flag for the instant limit, so they had to come down pit road as a result. But you got the fights for LMP2 still hot. All the fights in GTM seem to be dropping back, at least for the time being. But Josh Goen still under heavy fire, courtesy of Bernardo Silva for the class lead.
Yeah, I think Silva senses an opportunity. I've talked about the straight line performance of that BMW, and considering every single good opportunity is at the end of a long straightaway, that just adds to it even more. Goen having to defend for his life, but he's been able to do it so far. Silva trying to clean off the windshield, have a better view of that number 18 as they head their way off through turn number 1 out into NASCAR Bend right about now. I talked about Silva having to worry about the pressure from Manuel Mayer in that 44 Matco machine. He's got another Porsche behind him, though. Now it's Sean Hatfield who dives down to the inside off in the left hook, trying to throw a haymaker Silva's way. Doesn't work out well. Silva's still holding on to second. That just adds into the complexities for that number 88 BMW even more.
Still fighting strong for the GT Pro race lead, and these guys mere inches away from disaster. Tyler Redden has had a bit of a moment as well. We'll get a look at that in just a second, but for the moment, once again, you see Bernardo Silva attempt for the over-under. No room, though, coming around through Oak Tree. This is what happened to Tyler Redden, the block of Victoria Simsport. Too much curve, spins it out all by himself out of Oak Tree.
It's still close here. Something's got to break here soon, Nolan. These drivers have just been able to get away, not get away with murder, but they've definitely been able to get away with a couple of misdemeanors that would usually land them just a couple of years since. Oh no, they're getting away with like minor fraud out there on the racetrack. It's not completely murder, but it's definitely a little bit shady criminal activity. But right now, everybody's still bringing the heat in their own respective battles, not just in the GT3s, but in the LMP2s as well. Look at this little gaggle of cars right now. This fight for P2 as Alfonso Reis has just checked out.
Yeah, right now, Rick Team Racing running away with the LMP2 race lead, 7.4 seconds clear from Track Limit Sim Racing, who has his hands full with Twin SR by the back of Bornheim and Visual Motorsports breathing down his neck. An hour and 6 minutes to go. And this race still with a lot to offer in terms of racing. That has got one of the wildest sports car restarts we have seen in a real long time here, Ron.
Yeah, no, I always like VIR. I think it puts on some good racing, at least on the sim racing broadcasting side of things. A majority of the races I get to cover here are more on the, I wouldn't say amateur level. It's amateur level in reference of the cars. You know, you think about the likes of Formula V's, Spec Racer Fords, Formula Fords, occasionally see an F4 race or an MX-5 race, but don't get to see these top-class cars run around here too much in the sim. That's usually just the lower-level cars that tackle this track on a more regular basis, but this track is one, they knew what they were doing back in the 50s when they first designed this place, a side-by-side for the lead in GT Pro, and finally, after a wait of about 50,000 years, Bernardo Silva behind the wheel of that number 88 Rick Team Racing BMW finally gets the lead over Joshua Goen. Now, whether or not he's going to be able to pull away, that's a different dilemma, but he finally got that spot after an agonizing probably 20 minutes of wanting to get that spot.
We knew it was only a matter of time. Vulture Motorsports coming down pit road. But that BMW just had so much pace, there was no way he wasn't going to make the look for the lead sooner or later. So as he keeps his fight working forward, John Santoro from behind, 6th place up for grabs in LMP2. These guys only 8/10 behind an ongoing fight for 2nd place.
Driver still squabbling up. Here's the side-by-side fight at the moment in GT3M. This is for 6th place in the category. Blocko Motor Sim Sport in that 283 Aston Martin, getting that spot as an LMP2 right behind them, kind of boxed in, heading out of 1 all through 2 and 3 right now. That's a Fury number 30 driver that we saw have that shifting problem earlier on. Now back out there on the racetracks of the team, able to repair that damage, rejoin without any further incident, and trying to cut their way through the traffic, which is now going to be a dilemma once more. I don't think it'll be any more worrisome than what we saw earlier on, but it's still going to be not a bed of roses, as there's some sort of breakout going on there in GT, as you can see the 64 with a moment and a bumper flying.
Yeah, this was Wolf Motorsports getting caught up with Vulture Motorsports, and that was Virtual Power Sim Racing 77 entry that just couldn't stop in time in the Porsche for the crash that came their way immediately after.
You know, it's very rare on a track like this that you get to see a little stack up, but it is narrow, it is VIR, as you see drivers trying to cut their way in and out of the traffic, weaving in and out through the S's. This is a worrisome point. Look at the 11, having to run a little bit wide as that 64 up in front. The driver right behind trying to punch out. That was the 23 of Dominic Eisenberg, who sensed an opportunity. Thankfully, though, for the 11 of Damian Benke, he gets that move done all through Oak Tree, able to give himself a slight cushion, going to drive away. We always talk about the pace differential between our classes, and really here, I think it exemplifies the true pace differential between the prototypes and the GT3s, as we have a battle breaking out once more. This is for the final 2 spots inside the top 5 in LMP2.
Yep. Eisenberg and Garrett Spenst 2 by, and getting involved now is John Santoro. So Patty Engineer SRT getting into the mix. So is Kikoya Lassette for Flight Level Racing, wanted to get involved as well. 3-way grudge match down the straight. Several GT cars down pit road for damage repairs from that incident earlier in this lap. There's Isaac Day Motorsports' Aston Martin out of pit road, and that is going to massively disrupt John Santoro's attempt on going for the pass on Goen.
As that Goen Racing stable has been so quick here, they're just looking to get a good result out of this. We talked about it under the latest yellow. once we're done with this race here, we will be close to the halfway mark for the entirety of this season here in VSCA in 2026. And also halfway through the sprint races. We've already had the action at Long Beach and Laguna Seca, of course, here at VIR. So a lot of sprint racing action coming up. Of course, the next 2 races here in this series on May 9th at Homestead, Miami, and May 30th.
Oh, look out! Hold on! Sorry to cut you off. It's Going Racing being pushed off the racetrack by one of the Porsches. Garrett Spence having a huge ride through the grass.
That was a jump scare for all parties involved. That driver very lucky that on the rejoin, no one was around them. That could have ended in catastrophe. It's again through the S's, off into South Bend, where that differential is put on full display. That is a huge, huge moment for all parties involved. Let's take a look at this here. Riding on board, Garrett Spence in that 51 Going Racing, 81 Going Racing car. It's again going for a move there. It may be a little bit wide through there, pretty much the same width as the rest of the racetrack, but the actual racing surface is incredibly narrow. It is no more than a single car width, and you can actually run through there without ending up either in the dirty part of the racetrack or especially in the marbles, now that we've already had so much racing in our rearview mirror coming up to the final hour of this race. So you can imagine the marble buildup on the side of the road pretty bad.
Yeah, no kidding. 1 hour to go exactly here today. Dominic Eisenberg still retaining the momentum as we cruise on down the back straightaway. Manuel Mayer and Josh Goen, Alexander Neufeld, all still within a second of each other for second, third, and fourth in GT Pro. And like you said, Bernardo Silva started to stretch his legs, now 2.5 seconds clear for the GT Pro lead.
Yeah, I was wondering whether or not Bernardo Silva was able to drive away. Would he be able to extend that margin? Well, it turns out he has. Thankfully, was able to keep a little bit left in his tank, able to stretch his legs once he got past, and now Going Racing having to really worry. Already dropped down to third. I think that Ferrari is just better in the clean air. It also hurts out the fact there's another sideways snap heading off through the turn. Alexander Neufeld may be able to get a move done here soon. Sweeps around the outside, heading down into 2 and 3. But Josh Goen in that Going Racing 18th Ferrari able to hold on for now. You got to consider the cars that he's been running behind now. And a BMW overtake him, which I said has the aerodynamic properties of a brick. That punches a pretty massive hole. And that Porsche isn't exactly small either, especially compared to those low-slung Ferraris. Gotta wonder how badly the dirty air has been hurting Goen now that he's getting a taste of it for the first time in quite some time.
They did get around a Fisher Motorsports Porsche, by the way, but it was the GTM entry trying to slow these guys up to help out the GT Pro entry. Hold on. Oh, look out. One car off the road and hard into the wall. Left side of the racetrack. Not sure who that was. That just went out wide. Goen's just been hit by Manuel Mayer, had to stack up for the incident. I think it was off the SS Racing that spun out.
And now side by side heading down the back straightaway as we cut to the replay to see exactly what went down here. It's again through the S's, off in the S's, losing it right at the exit of the S's, and oh my goodness me, that's both a hard hit and a code brown moment for the 44. If those two cars made contact, I think somebody may have been able to ballpark it.
And there is the pass that we saw. They were side by side coming up over the rise as well. So this is the look at that two-way battle all the way up the hill. And I believe it was the likes of Frida Sport who was able to maintain that run. No, it was not. Manuel Mayer actually completed the pass and got the spot back coming into turn 14. And take a ride on board here with Mako Fisher Motorsports. And just how close that got to disaster.
Oh, the fact the only casualty out of that outside the front end of that BMW is some of the braking markers heading into Oak Tree. Again, proves that miracles can indeed take place. That I can't even imagine how it was for that driver behind the wheel. That is nerve-wracking stuff. As here comes your overall race leader, Alfonso Reese, finally pulling down pit lane. That could be a driver swap as well. He's been in that car forever and a day.
Everyone else, you're looking at 11th through 13th now in GT Pro up for grabs. A lot of the battles all of a sudden breaking apart as we're seeing the final pit stops underway for a good chunk of this field. And Damian Benke off the road, heads up. That's right on the racing line for Visual Motorsports. Not too many choices, but to kind of just sit and wait and hope that he finds a gap, which he did. So he gets back out onto the racetrack.
Taking a look at the replays here. This has been a tough run of things for many, but the LMP2s, I think, are now beginning to struggle. There it is, just a quick little dip off the track. That Oak Tree section, for being a pretty, in more situations than not, a pretty blasé corner for drivers in the grand scheme of the lap. The main worry that you have to have is having a good exit. It is a real pain in the hind end for drivers and all sorts of different equipment. It doesn't matter whether they're in a prototype or in a GT car. The Oak Tree is going to strike you down, which is fitting considering the Oak Tree itself got struck down by lightning about a decade ago.
Still have Blocco Motori Simsport trying to fight against Unitronic Fisher Motorsports as well as iRacing Today Motorsports right behind. So Fisher, Blocco Motori, and iRacing Today all under a blanket. And right now, Timothy Johnston trying to make the move on Tyler Redden on that Aston Martin. Working through the roller coaster section. But it is still Redden that leads the way for 12th and trying to mount an attack on Jay Van Mepellen for 11th.
Still very close out there on the racetrack as the pit stops are coming around for a decent chunk of the field. Driver swaps going down for some, including your at one point leader Francisco Silva. Now behind the wheel of that car is a dive heading off into turn number one. That's a Blocco Motori car looking to jump up some places. That 183 Aston Martin, but just haven't seen that same car kind of fire off the way that they have so far this season. They've been quick. That goes without saying. They've been able to win 2 out of the 4 races so far. 1 at Long Beach, 1 at Sebring. But here, I'm not sure, it just hasn't been clicking right. We saw that car just be constantly sideways, trying to stamp on the gas, which is a rare sight in a GT3 car, considering these cars do have traction control and ABS. And that's a driver sliding off the track there in the back shot. I believe that's a Porsche involved.
No, it's a McLaren. It's the Knockbro Racing Team. That's Rusty Spatulas. Jean Zalakas off the road.
That car is destroyed. Thankfully, they don't have too many cars behind them at the moment as they're going to be heading their way off through the S's. That car is going to be dangerously off pace throughout the next half lap that they have to trundle their way back to pit lane. Gotta wonder how that's going to go as more drama here, this time with the prototypes.
That's Track Limits off the road now. I believe joined by Twinton SR by the back of Bornheim. Get a look at that in a moment as well. So all of a sudden, it's all started to kick off here at Virginia International Raceway, and here comes the carnage that we semi-expected. It was a Seltzman with a 112 hard into the wall, and then moments later, same corner, the 420 with contact for the 231, and they both go around.
Yeah, unfortunately for Lucas Moncla behind the wheel of the number 23 machine, that's actually netted them an incident point violation and a black flag. That's going to sting even worse. They're currently running 3rd in class.
And there you saw Jay Van Mepellen dropping to Tyler Redden. So Redden forcing the issue for the 9th place spot. And off the road is the Matco car now. So more drivers having problems. We are getting spins every other corner here. It feels like someone's just dropped a bunch of oil on the whole circuit. I mean, this is complete calamity right now out there.
You know, I'm honestly shocked about what's going on right now. Everybody running into trouble. I was wondering whether the track temperatures were skyrocketing again, but no. 109 Fahrenheit, you'd think that these drivers are dealing with perfect conditions, but I think it's a mix of tire fatigue because the tires have already been beaten, battered, and bruised. Also driver fatigue as well. Everybody being a little bit more sloppy out there on the racetrack. The mistakes beginning to form. Drivers just struggling in all of our classes, and the side-by-side battling sometimes ending in disaster early on. It's now ending in disaster on a bit more of a common occurrence. These drivers still keeping it clean for the most part, but we'd be lying if we said that the incidents have been rare over the past 15 minutes, because they have been pretty much a dime a dozen.
Look out here as you got two of the sister cars trying to go side by side up into the roller coaster section. And now RCT Motorsports trying to push out the Matco car. And the Matco Tools Fisher Motorsports number 44 entry forced to drop back as RCT Motorsports will complete the pass. Speaking of penalties, your second place runner in LMP2 has one now.
And that's Lucas Moncla, who was getting caught up in that drama a few moments ago. We saw the incident heading out of left hook. That was actually after turn number 5, pardon me, right before the snake section. Lost control right around, and unfortunately for him, getting picked up with that incident point. The incident point violations, very easy to come by here in this series. A limit of just 10x before you pick up a penalty. No disqualification limit, but that 10x, even in one of these sprint races at 2 hours and 40 minutes, that is a very, very easy thing to hit. I'll have to break down the stats, but that works out to pretty much having to average like a third of an incident point every 10 laps.
Fury Simsport having another off as well. So this one car that has seen better days, unfortunately, for the Fury Simsport entries. Bernardo Silva comes down pit road, and Brick Team Racing will put Jose Barbosa into the car for the final 50-minute stint of this race.
Yeah, now you got to wonder about these new drivers. Getting some new blood behind the wheel. Drivers that are feeling a lot more refreshed than their adversaries who are just now getting out of the race cars. So got to wonder how it's going to change the battles. Different drivers, different levels of energy, different levels of excitement, and different driving styles as well. Seeing another driver swap go on here. Nicholas Goen now behind the wheel. The Goen Racing number 19 in your GT Am category, as Jack Hedgecox has now gone back behind the wheel of the GT Pro Goen Racing Ferrari. We saw Josh Goen behind the wheel of that car after an early call to pit, but now Hedgecock, who put that car on the pole and was leading early in class, now back up.
Third place up for grabs here at LMP2, Goen Racing, and Aaron Beaver racing against Samuel Hoff for Paddy Engineer SRT, an attempt in a turn 14. Still, it's Goen Racing leading the way. So third place, not going to see any kind of change at the moment as Paddy Engineer SRT and Samuel Hoff going to exchange blows. So that is going to potentially see these, well, they are going to go to second as Lucas Moncla has just come down pit road as well, and they are right behind a good chunk of GT traffic to work their way through, so this fight is not done yet.
Yeah, certainly far from over. As I broke down the numbers, and again, this is math from me, so you can take this with as many grains of salt would be found on a margarita, as drivers coming to blows off in a 2. That's the 3 involved in that. I believe one of the Blocomatori cars got a piece of that drama as well. They've been able to rejoin. That's Nicholas Goen in the Goen Racing Ferrari. That car's dead on the side of the road. This could put us back under yellow.
With under an hour to go, this would be a mad sprint to the end of the race if this brings out a safety car. 499 Racing going for a driver swap as well. We're going to keep things on live right now, see what's going to develop as a result of a huge spot of dramas. No yellow flag yet. They're holding this for a long time. Wanted to see if that number 19 entry can get rolling, but I don't think that car has any power. I think it might be stranded, and he has been given permission to tow, it looks like. So they will not throw a safety car.
Yeah, thankfully the runoff areas, especially on the outside turn number 1, are huge here. So he was able to pull over to the side of the track. He was in that exact same point, but now permission back to tow. We remain clean and green. Well, not clean, but we do remain green as we got formation flying going on throughout the pack. LMP2 drivers looking to side their way through the GT3 traffic that's still continuing to battle. This is really froggy right now.
Oh, Jesus. Everyone just scrambling for whatever they can muster right now. Thomas Spencer is in the pit road for his final stop of the day. Rick Team Racing and Goen Racing's Jack Hedgecox still embroiled in the fight as well. This is a look at what went wrong. So Goen was fresh out of pit road, I want to point out in all of this. Blocomatori Simsport is right in front of them. What the heck happened here? Oh, Blocomatori lost it on cold tires. Then back
Oh,
across the
and
road,
block-
clipped the BMW.
Yeah, I knew immediately as that car started to go around, some drivers may be thinking, oh yeah, you just need to hold the brakes. These cars have ABS. Holding the brakes doesn't really do anything. It's just going to make some matters worse. In fact, that is disaster braking out. Really, nothing that could be done. I gotta say, both with the Blockamatori 283 that we saw be the epicenter of that collision and the 183 in the Pro class that we saw earlier on, they've been really loose heading out of turn one. We saw that car have a wiggle with the 183 and now the 283 completely losing it. I wonder if they're maybe doing something with their traction control settings that's just causing that back end to be so free on exit.
Jack Hedgecock's trying to make the run on Jose Barbosa down into turn number one, and just like that, Going Racing slips through for the number 2 spot in GT Pro. And a change for the lead as Jason Ketty comes down pit road for Flight Level Racing and GTM, sending him tumbling down the order as well. So Daniel Gralty now leads the way. Gralty at the moment on lap 4 of his stint, so he could already be on his final stint of the race.
Side-by-side battling here in LMP2. Drivers still looking to break into their own little battles. Is Gregory Meismer now behind the wheel of the 420 car, losing out on that spot to Matthew Graves behind the wheel of the 657 effort, currently holding on to that P4 spot at the moment here in this field. Flight Level and Track Limits battling out there. Track Limits, bit of a wiggle. Gregory Meismer, a driver that have gone to cover for quite a lot of moons here on iRacing, competing in LMP2s, whether it be here in these endurance race formats or even in sprint races as well. He is a very formidable set of hands behind the wheel of these Dallara P217s in iRacing. He's quick, looking to be a little bit quicker to jump his way back up into 4th, as they're currently 21 seconds back of your leader of Francisco Silva, who's been able to jump back into that top spot with Aaron Beaver now in P2, and a move attempted into
you're
Oak Tree. That's not going to work.
Talk about a mistimed opportunity, and around goes Meismer as he tags the right rear Matthew Orovech and all of that. Well, that puts that fight to a very quick conclusion. So we jump our way back up front. Thomas Fisher, Tyler Redding, 5th and 6th, as they will cruise back into turn number 1. Still have Thomas Fisher leading the way, but you have to imagine that sooner or later, much like we've seen all the battles picking up in this last 20 minutes or so, it's not going to be long before this one comes to blows.
No, as he goes for the dive, heading off, and it's turn number 5. Oh, he held on to it. You can tell that was a good dive because I sound like a tornado siren as he went for the move. Hang on to it, boys. They keep it going in a straight line. Keep it nose to tail. They're still going to fight, but we're starting to see these racers get a bit more experimental with the attempted maneuvers. Drivers feeling more comfortable than I think I've ever seen with attempting a dive off into Oak Tree. And turn 4, I think an okay spot. Left hook, good opportunity to throw a left hook at your competition's way, but very easy for the incident points to throw a left hook your way and send you down in pit lane with a penalty.
Do these guys know that they have 43 minutes left in this race and we're not in the last 10 minutes of this one? Are they aware? I mean, we still have a very long way to go before this race draws to a close, and they're racing like it's the final lap out there.
See, you know, it may be 43 minutes left to go in this race, but considering we started off with 2 hours and 40 minutes, it feels like no time at all. You know, time and the way that it passes all depends on context. This was an important lesson that I learned as a child. There is a little painting that we have in our downstairs bathroom to this day that says, warning, a minute long depends on which side of the door you're on. That has rung true with me ever since. 43 minutes may seem like a long time in the case of the lifespan of a fruit fly, or in the grander scheme of a bit more of a shorter race, but even in these sprint races, it's a 2 hour and 40 minute long affair. So 43 minutes is basically going to be feeling like a blink of an eye to some of these drivers, and certainly to these teams that have been tackling this race all throughout the day.
Samuel Hoff getting around Aaron Beaver for the number 2 spot in LMP2, and on top of that, also in turn 1, You have Frida Sports' Logan Giesbrecht trying to fight against Tamer Albaga for third place in GTM, and that's going to be a move that Albaga gets completed for Wastegate Racing. So right when some battles are ending, others are quickly jumping off here this afternoon, Ron, as this race has, it has been something today. I mean, this has been, dare I say, one of the more physical races of the season.
You know, we are close to NASCAR country here, so drivers have been breaking out the elbows, all gas, no brakes, shake and bake, do it for Dale. We've seen drivers attempt bump and runs. That doesn't end well in sports cars. I don't think you need to be a rocket scientist to know that one for sure, but this has been really physical. It's been exciting from our perspective here on the broadcast booth. I'm sure for some drivers, though, it has been a very frustrating afternoon, probably not happy about their competition, not happy about the situations they've been put in. And we were talking before we got this broadcast up and rolling, Nolan, about how things would have gone in this race if all four of our classes were running. Imagine if we had GTPs thrown into this. That would, I can't even say complicate the equation. That would just, you know, set off a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, last year in the 2025 rendition of this race, they only had the GT cars after they had all four in the 2024 outing of this race. This year, they added back the LMP2s, which, like you said, I think it's kind of thrown some of these drivers for a loop, having the prototypes to manage up. They would have been so used to not having to worry about them last year.
Yeah, no, it is an odd one. Whenever we go through these sprint races where, you know, one class is excluded, we saw it last time out, albeit maybe a bit less noticeable in the sense of the GT3 AMs not competing in that Laguna Seca race while the GT3 Pros still remained. Here, though, with your top class not here for the one and only time this season where the LMP2s will be contending for an overall win, just adds in to complicate matters more. So right now, these drivers still, I wouldn't say it's a venture off into the unknown, but it does feel awkward. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that many drivers have struggled to settle into a groove here in this race. Now, whether it is down to the fact that it has been a little bit since we raced here in this series, the last round of the championship was back on March 21st in Laguna Seca, whether it be that, whether it be drivers trying to nail down these ever-evolving and very challenging track temperatures to this moment, or whether it just be the nature of this race where everybody's kind of been running in a constant state of not even fight or flight, it's more so flight or flight, where drivers either want to get away or they want to get the hell away.
Curtis Schreiber into pit row for his final stop of the afternoon. And so yet one more car drops down the order into the order that we can expect to see them in this race. So has Marco Silva for Matco Fisher Motorsports into the pits for what will be the final scheduled time of this race. And that is really allowing a lot of this field, I imagine, to be able to kind of sort themselves out a little bit more effectively, is having these green flag stops kind of take place. The battles are dropping off a bit, and that's allowing for drivers to finally find their rhythm for really the first time all night.
Yeah, everybody's settling down, relaxing. Now that we're getting a longer green flag run going here in this race, these drivers, you know, being able to avoid just running in constant fear of something going down. Now, granted, it is still really, really tense out there on the racetrack. Cause look at that, off track, heading off through the oak tree section. That's a 757 of Matthew Graves. That was very, very close as he headed his way off through that turn, the flight level racing car. Quick little hop, skip, and a jump off the track, side-by-side racing. He tried to split the difference with that GT3 traffic, and that's not going to work through there. It is super-duper narrow through there. Even the runoff area is quite small compared to some of the other turns around this track. You can get a move done there. We've seen it go out well. We've also seen it end in utter catastrophe.
Still have Barbosa, Rombots, and Fisher. 2, 3, and 4 in your GT Pro category. In fact, there goes Vulture Motorsports' Thomas Fisher to the inside of Frida Sport. Can he secure the deal on the Porsche? Frida Sport still has the inside. trying to fight back into turn 3. It's going to be a brave look, but it's going to be a completed overtake for Vulture. Tyler Red into the box as well. Let's check in on the GTMs. We haven't talked about them too much in the last little while here, Ron, as Jacob Bessemer, Thomas Spencer, and Jesse Molina, 6th through 8th, up for grabs in GTM as well.
And we've talked about these drivers trying to contend for a good result in reference to the points, in reference just keeping the momentum going too. You know, as we get towards the end of the spring, the schedule a little bit packed in. I mean, next month in May, we've got two races in a row. We've got Homestead and CTMP right next to each other. That's probably the shortest gap in between races for this entire campaign. But then after the 6 hours of the Glen in June, it's going to be about a 2-month break there for the 6 hours of Road America on August the 15th. So now that everything is back together and the races are close, this is a time to kind of, you know, punch, try and get the momentum rolling, go from stride to stride, both in terms of trying to contend for a championship or for some other teams that don't have those championship intentions or aspirations. Just try and get the best result they can. Not everybody is in it to win it, but they're all in to try and get the best result they can.
Free to Sport, Diego Rodriguez down pit road to get a driver swap done, I think, for the final time in this race. Boy, how the mighty have fallen from Bloco Ettore Sim Sport. Coming into this race, 2nd place in the points, and yet slated the moment for an 11th place finish. I mean, this is not at all where we anticipated this Aston Martin being at the top of the show.
Yeah, no, not at all. We said they had back-to-back wins, and that they do, but not going to be in contention for a win. I'm still wondering about the exits of turn 1 and really all of the other slow spots of this track that could very well be where they are losing out on the time. Every single time we see that Aston Martin try and negotiate their way through, it's always a little bit darty, I think is the other way that I could sum it up. The rear end just trying to peek at pretty much any single point in time. The exits of the turns have seemed to be the spots where the Astons have been losing out the most, which is a little bit odd to think about. Usually in the realm of GT racing and just, you know, racing period, you think that the cars coming out of Europe are going to be a bit more, you know, handling oriented, but those Aston Martins usually tend to have quite a lot of grunts, quite a lot of power there as well. I think it's those slow fiddly parts of this racetrack, like turn 1, like Oak Tree, where they're probably losing out on the most amount of time. Even if it's just through Oak Tree alone on exit, that stings heading down the back straightaway, which is maybe one of the longest we'll be visiting all season long.
I believe you actually might be correct on that one. Going to quickly check in on our calendar once again. I think Daytona, if you wanted to count NASCAR 1 and 2, might have a longer one, but obviously whether or not that fully counts as a straight can be a little bit debatable. We'll count it? Okay. Well, I mean, Long Beach, that very long run that down to Toyota, that might count. Homestead Miami Speedway is certainly up there. Actually, I think Road America in the front straightaway might have VIR fully beat for all-out straights.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of fast racetracks, that will be the quickest by far. There are some ovals that have slower speeds than what we will see there come time a little bit later on this season. So, you know, this racetrack is still rather fast, but that, you know, outside the start-finish straightaway and the backstretch, is there really any flat-out sections of this track to speak of? I think the only ones that even come close is like the run from turn 1 through into NASCAR Bend of turn 3, or the run out of the Snake section under the bridge into the Essence. Outside of that, there's no real flat-out runs around this track, so maybe it just adds into the mystique ever so slightly, being disproportionately long. That's always something to consider. You know, if a massive chunk of the racetrack is just a straightaway, it may not be the longest straightaway in the world, but it is still pretty massive. Long Beach, that's a long straightaway, massive compared to the rest of the racetrack, but that track is 1.9 miles in length, so may be about the same length as the start-finish straightaway is here at VIR.
Flight Level Racing having a brief moment off track, and that is going to allow for Jacob Esmer to almost get around. The Thomas Spencer will get through as well. So this is the moment as... Oh, a huge twitch coming into the snake. Sends him off the road, and then Lucas Moncla. Seconds later, coming back onto the racetrack. Just makes an easy pass. That was for 6th in GTM.
And I will say here, Nolan, out of fear of jinxing it, I'm cautious to say this, but I'll say it anyways. I think these drivers have been able to fully settle down. Now, that will probably age like milk in the Nevada sun, but I do think these racers are finding their comfort zone. We talk about that level of driver comfort. Of all the racetracks that we're visiting thus far this season, there have been many that you have to rely on that driver comfort just to get the max out of everything. Laguna Seca, that's a track where you're pretty much turning more often than not. Sebring, you gotta be comfortable for that race, especially so considering it's 12 hours. Long Beach, Street Circuit, that goes without saying. And Daytona for the season opener, the 24-hour, the crown jewel, that goes without saying as well. But VIR, if you're not feeling pleased about yourself, pleased about your driving, pleased about your car, well, there's pretty much every single corner type that will try and bite a chunk out of you. You've got the slow, fiddly turns, you've got the hairpins, you've got the fast sweepers, you've got the quick little kinks, you've got pretty much everything in between. This racetrack, if you're not feeling comfortable, will kill.
It is a true driver's racetrack, and not one that likes to be underestimated by any stretch of the imagination. We have seen that time after time so far today. Even to the prototypes. I mean, look at what happened earlier on, right? I mean, thinking you have just enough downforce to hang one around the outside of turn 9. Nope. Not when it's off camera, you don't. You're going to be spat out into the grass for believing as such. BMW, M-Team, GSR, Flight Level Racing, and Vulture Motorsports all still under battle for 7th in GTM. Right now, only 2 major fights on the racetrack. 3rd in GT Pro, and then 7th through 9th in GTM as well. And right now, 8th place, about to change hands. Jets Molina has got Kyle Potter breathing down his neck.
And side by side, German on German, Porsche on BMW, heading down into roller coaster of turn number 14. Will this be a successful move from the 64? It is just barely. A couple of inches, I think, was the gap as he cleared himself heading through there. That's the way you get the moves done into turn number 14. You need to punch out, have that clear upper hand heading down into the turn. There's no questions that have to be raised in your head heading down to turn 14. We're talking about a driver comfort and a driver confidence. You got to be confident heading into turn number 14 to get a move done successfully. If you don't, would you say the results would be catastrophic or cataclysmic? Which word?
Depends on how many cars there are.
Touche.
Catastrophic for 3 and under, cataclysmic for 4 and up.
See, the way that I usually break it down is a matter of, I compare it to the spectrum that I call it between an aroma, a scent, a smell, and an odor.
I see.
See, it's thoughts like this that force teachers to separate me from the rest of the students in my class back when I was in school. Side by side, all through the S's, and for the first time here, drivers actually get it done clean. The reason why? Drivers had to back out of it. That is still a terrifying prospect, but whenever these drivers get frustrated, they'll sense any sort of overtaking opportunity as such a tantalizing idea, and that's kind of led to some of the more interesting approaches to get past each other here in this race that we've seen from drivers in both the GTs and the LMP2s.
I want to point out all 3 of these drivers actually running down Thomas Spencer with the Superstar Racing team. So that number 4 McLaren could be put under some heavy fire soon here in the final half hour of this race. Well, in fact, they're right there and ready to pounce of Vulture Motorsports.
So making up that time very quickly, closing up that gap very quickly, and going to try and get a move done here soon. Now, thankfully, they're not feeling too much pressure from behind. This 4-car group really just broken up into 2 and 2. So will this present a better opportunity? Looking down the inside, heading off into the turn, a little bit of the headlight flash heading down in there side by side through the braking zone. On the brakes and down the gears are going to go. Will it be a successful move? Yes, it will.
I still have Spencer trying to look for the over-under, but no joy on that one. And I feel like the Superstar Racing Team McLaren might have lost a lot of that early race pace, and they are at this point just trying to make sure that they are here to score the points and survive until the end of this race. We already run boats. Jose Barbosa, Nicholas Soul, all still in the blanket as well for 3rd through 5th.
Yeah, one driver that is sticking out to me quite a lot here, Nolan, is your current overall leader of Francisco Silva. That 87 stable, once they jumped into that lead, they just have not looked back. Currently 16 and a half seconds of margin between themselves and Samuel Hoff in the number 47 car. Now, this LMP2 class has been very competitive throughout this race, throughout this season as well. But Rick Team Racing looking to do something, I wouldn't say unusual, but it would be a first this season. Become the first team outside of Twin Turn SR who won the Roar and the Daytona 24 to get multiple wins so far this season. That would be the first so far in that LMP2 category to get more than one win in actual championship competition, which is a feat that hasn't been achieved by many teams so far this season. Only in GTP with World of Sim Racing in the 51 and GT3 Pro with Block Motori Sim Sport 183 has that been achieved, a team able to get multiple wins.
Again, goes to show just how competitive this field has been all season long, that they've been able to go this long without many repeat winners on the field. And you could argue whether or not the Roar counts, being a non-championship race as a result of it being the qualifier for the Makota Setup Shop 24 Hours of Daytona. But still,
it's a win in spirit.
It is a win in spirit. You're absolutely correct. And like you said, they went through to win the Daytona 24 as well. So hard to say they didn't back it up.
Yeah, that is for sure. It kind of adds into the misfortune that we saw with that 23 who picked up that incident point violation penalty a bit earlier on here. They're currently running in 6th, I believe, in class. They're in front of the team car of the number 22, but I think Twin Turn looking to bounce back, return to victory lane for the first time since that McConey Setup Shop Daytona 24 all the way back on January 10th. This is a long campaign stretching from the start of the year, the first weekend of the year with a Roar on January 3rd, all the way through to the Petit Le Mans at the end of this season on September the 19th. That is a very, very long run.
Block Motori Sim Sport faking a move to the left and instead cuts right down the inside of turn 1 of the Utronic Fish and Motorsports entry, putting Jay Van Mepellen down to the 11th place spot and pushing Tyler Redding up into a top 10 in racing action here tonight. Still a lot of fights ahead of us here, Rod, as we're now going to see Tyler Redding try to stretch those legs. Let's ride on board the Nicholas Solver Telemetry Racing. He sits 1 second with the front row seat to the battle for 3rd place in your GT Pro category. We'll let you feel the noise on Greenfly TV. Thomas Fisher coming down pit road for the final time for the Vulture Motorsports GT Pro entry. While we were away, 2 spins. One happened a few minutes ago, one happened a few seconds ago. We'll start it off with BMW M Team TSR. Spinning off the rover, Jesse Molina. Bit of a slide at Oak Tree. No harm, no foul. Slightly more harm and slightly more foul was Track Limit Sim Racing's Gregory Meismer off the road. This gives them a black flag for the incident limit.
And it's once again that 1-2 punch, not so fittingly, of 2 and 3. Every single time that we've seen a driver go off the circuit in the last half of this race, it's been heading off through there. Now that section is tough. You know, you have the long kind of meandering bend in the road heading out of Horseshoe of turn 1, leading right away into turn 2, which just hits you really bad. It's like opening the door in the dog days of summer and just feeling that heat and humidity hit you in the face, or like opening the oven, like opening the door of an oven. It's really brutal through there. And then 3 just comes out of nowhere. It's a 1-2 punch. Unfortunately, it's caught at many. Gregory Meismer now dropping the anchors. Big lockup down into the pit lane to try and serve that black flag. All in all, it's just helping out Francisco Silva behind the wheel of that 87 car, your current leader overall.
Most of the battles around the racetrack have kind of dropped off as of late. A lot of, I think, lap traffic has, I think, disrupted most of the runs we've been seeing. Damian Benke, of course, into pit road for the final stop of the day as well. There is Gregory Meismer back onto the racetrack, and Meismer now is a battle ahead of him because he just got overtaken by Samuel Hoff for second place for Paddy Engine and SRT.
So Hoff, we haven't talked about him too much here in this stint of the race. Got into the car a little while ago now. I'll get the actual lap that he hopped into it. Currently pushing lap 71 in this race. He started the race in that car, ran until lap 20. Then John Santoro got behind the wheel of it from lap 21 all the way through until lap 47. So just seeing it through to the end and putting together some consistent laps just to rattle off his last few laps here. It's been 141.1, 142.2. Previous lap before that was a 144.8, but the reason why that was the case is because he was just coming out of pit lane. But even looking before that stop, he's been consistently in that low 1 minute 40 bracket. And we've talked so much throughout this broadcast about how tough of a nut to crack this racetrack is. If you can set those consistent lap times and just execute this race with the sort of precision you only see from modern day engineering machinery, you're going to be able to get a good result. Now, I don't think a win is necessarily on the cards for the number 47 team. However, a P2 would still be pretty all right. P2 overall, P2 in class, that can help out loads in points.
Still continuing to battle this one out as drivers do their darndest to work with whatever they can muster. Free to Sport, and we already Rumbo's coming down pit road. So evidently there were more GT3 pit stops still left in the tanks here for these guys than I thought there were. And all these pit stops happened in the final 15 minutes. These pit stops really are make or break. You can see a lot of them only going for fuel only.
And I think that is indication of one main thing, the continuing evolution of the track conditions. 104 degrees Fahrenheit, your current track temp, compared to what we started off at, that was nearly 20 degrees Fahrenheit higher. It has gone down a whole lot. The ambient temperatures, too, have gone down. Currently 83 Fahrenheit for that track temp, currently pushing about 4:30 in the evening here in sim time. So these drivers just not beating up those tires nearly as much as they were before. Now, the tire fall off at the opening portion of the race was bad. We saw those drivers, I can't even say skating around like a declawed cat attempting to climb up an igloo, skating around like a hairless cat dunked into a bathtub full of olive oil. It was absolutely brutal at the start of this race. Now, though, it is a lot less hostile in terms of the track temperatures. It's allowing these drivers to just put a little bit more time on those tires. Same level of stress in the grand scheme of things, but that stress is being done over a significantly longer period of time.
Vulture Motorsports and Irishman Today Motorsports, Timothy Johnston continuing to battle this one out. So a fight up for grabs. This one for P6 in GT Pro. Half a second between them as Johnston putting Fisher under fire with only a handful of laps and a handful of minutes to go. 14 minutes to be exact on the clock. I'd imagine under 10 laps just about left for the LMP2s, maybe right around 10 or 11 laps left for those contenders. And Johnston is right there and ready to do battle with Fisher.
Yeah, this is getting real froggy right now. I knew this was going to be the sight to behold as we got towards the end of this race, but I'm already expecting it to end in a swapperoo right now. You can feel the sort of growing tension in this fight. That driver feeling adventurous. Will he go for the dive hang off into turn number 1? No, but you can tell that there's a little bit left in the tank. You always get that sense riding on board with the driver, knowing, okay, there's a little bit left here. There's still time to gain that spot. So no point in just completely throwing caution to the wind now. 13 minutes left to go. Not a long time considering, we started off with a 2-hour and 40-minute long clock. But now, though, these drivers feeling that they just have a bit more time left to take it easy, then they can bring hell in the final 10 minutes.
Juan Figueroa Carrera for VSR Competición led him by Bloco Vittoria Simsport. Did not want to fight that one too much to the Acura. They recognized Bloco Vittoria, the faster car, wanting to play this one safe. Speaking of Bloco Vittoria, the GTM entry actually being overtaken by Kyler Potter. That was a Sean and G right now being bested by Kyle Potter.
Side-by-side racing as they head their way out of the turn block of Mattori. It's just the exits of those turns that the Aston Martins are really struggling at least for that team. I don't think we've seen anywhere near the same sort of struggles for some of the Aston Martins that we have sprinkled throughout this pack, Nolan. It's quite odd to see a car in GT3 racing struggle with one very specific thing. Usually it's just a general time loss, but I've noticed it lap after lap so far here. Those Aston Martins just seem to be dead in the water on the exits of all sorts of different turns. Anything that isn't a high-speed bend, I think they are really struggling, which is probably the reason why they've just been missing in action, especially with Bloco Mattori in both the GT3 AM and Pro categories.
It's going to be damaging to them in the points battle as well, especially in the GT Pro entry. They're going to need to do more at Homestead in a few weeks here if they want to bounce back in this one. Jose Barbosa fighting with Nicholas Soul. This is for the GT Pro race lead, about 3/4 of a second between them. It is the closest battle for a lead on the racetrack right now.
And one little point to bring up as well, just off the back of that discussion about the GT3 Pro Championship points battle. After the next race of the season at Homestead, Miami, the GT3 Pro drivers will not hit the racetrack again until the 6 hours of the Glen on June 20th. They will not be out there on the track for the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park round, which will be the end of this 4-round streak of nothing but sprint races. So for these GT3 Pro competitors, if they're looking to make inroads in the championship point standings, this is the time to do it, as they are still continuing on this run of running every single race through to this point in the campaign. The GTPs have already taken their time off. They're doing that here today. The GT3 AMs did, the LMP2s did at Long Beach. Now, though, it's going to be their turn in the not-too-distant future. So as they're still running along, chugging along here in this point of the season, they've got to strike.
Barbosa and Soul still close, still fighting. You saw Vision One Motorsports and Damian Banky slide off the road in front of them. So they're going to have an LMP2 flying up on them before too much longer. There you see him back out the shot. So Barbosa up front. Vulture Motorsports with the GTM entry. Could look to get in the way of the fight here, and this could be bad news for both Barbosa and Soul, depending on how this lap traffic falls in for them.
9.5 minutes left. The battles are going to start to get intense. These drivers seeing that now is the final heave-ho of the race. Get the moves done now and get them done soon. Gotta wonder what these racers have learned so far in the first 2 hours and 30 minutes of this race today. What are the good spots to get the moves done? I mentioned this as a little, off-passing comment, but I want to elaborate on it just a little bit more. The adventurous overtaking opportunities that many of these drivers and teams have utilized throughout today's competition, it's been surprising. Don't usually see drivers go for moves heading off into Oak Tree, but they have done it. Usually see drivers go for the moves heading off into Roller Coaster of Turn 14. They have not. Been a little bit backwards in that sense here today. I wonder if maybe we'll see a bit of a return to the normal as we get a little bit later along here, or whether that will just extend out to the final 10 minutes of this race.
Saw Double Stint Racing's Curtis Schreiber have a brief moment, kept it on the racetrack and out of the wall. While Double Stint Race, this is IRC Today Motorsports and Vulture Motorsports can be caught up. We've also blocked with Toyota Sim Sports Tyler Redden, making this a three-way fight now for 6th place in the final 10 minutes of the race here, Ron. And Porsche making use of every patch of racetrack there right behind the 499 Racing Lamborghini. Now, the problem for 499 Racing is, and honestly, if I'm DeMarcus Rogers here, I'm just getting out of the way because he's not fighting anybody. And oh boy, a shot to the shorts behind, and that gives Fisher a black flag for an instant limit.
Oh, and that is going to absolutely sting. Running 6th at the moment in class. They're going to have to come down to serve that, and that is going to be absolutely heartbreaking. It's not done yet, though. Blockamatore down the inside, a dive off into 4th.
He's not happy about it.
I can't blame him at all. Would you? I would.
Well, look at how much he's fighting these guys. I think he's sending them messages like, all right, if that's how it's going to be, I'm going to make sure that this is as difficult for you as possible until we get to the pit road. Because just because he has a black flag doesn't technically mean he is under any obligation to stop racing guys that he's on the same lap with.
One thing that we can say here, Nolan, is that the aggression has been maybe the highest out of all the races here at VIR. Maybe it's just a tight confines of the track, kind of the bullet in the china closet kind of effect here. Everybody just bouncing around. It has been a wild, wild race where drivers have been seeing red on several occasions and still expecting a couple more blips of that in the final 6 minutes and 40 seconds of this race. I nearly said 6 hours of this race. If that was the case and these drivers already were running into trouble, gotta wonder how the rest of this race will go. But still wondering that now, with only minutes left on the clock instead of hours, drivers beginning to fight, squabbles going on throughout the pack, and drivers again seizing the opportunity to get some inroads done in their championship points battles.
Vulture Motorsports forced into pit road at the end of this one. And one last fight in LMP2 developing as well with 6 minutes to go. Pandy Engineer SRT and Twinton SR by Rebecca Bornheim. It's Samuel Hoff versus Lucas Moncla for 2nd in the closing laps.
Yeah, Moncla in that number 23 car. We noticed the penalty for them earlier on. Hopefully they won't have to worry about that later on. We already saw a penalty affect a battle in the GT3s. Don't want to see that go on here in your top class. Doubly so considering this is the fight for P2 at the moment on the road. Samuel Hoff has put together a quiet stint of this race. We haven't talked about it too much, probably because the battles have been going on outside of his little bubble, but now the spotlight is on him. As you can see, the lines being used all through 3 and 4 into 5 right now. Samuel Hoff just barely in front of Lucas Moncla. Want to briefly touch on the lap times last time by. There was a full nearly second between those drivers. It was 1.3 seconds in terms of pace. Samuel Hoff really losing out. Try not to hold out try not to lose out in that fight for a second as Moncla tried to just run his gauge ever so slightly. Lap traffic though, that's Wastegate Racing in the 33 Mercedes. That's going to apply the pressure even more to the 47 as he is still not yielding.
Well, it wasn't just that. You also just saw for a moment as this is all going on up front here with the lead lap cars, but you just saw BMW M Team TSR, no better way to put it. He just got run over by GT Pro behind and just full throttled right through the back bumper of him. Not sure what that was all about, but that fight for second still developing with 4.5 minutes on the clock. Checks Molina into pit road as a result of that hard hit into the inside wall. But the 47 entry still fighting this one out with a 23 with just a handful of laps to go. And another checker by another Mercedes. Here comes Moncla round the left-hand side, down the pit straightaway. Samuel Hawk tucks in line behind, drafting down the front straightaway. But it's going to be Moncla holding on for the number 2 spot. What I want to do, Ron, let's check back in on that incident and listen in as we ride aboard of the Porsche that just cleaned out one of the BMWs. I mean, never lifted. In fact, upshifted throughout that whole incident.
You know, I said that we were in NASCAR territory here with this race, and I think some drivers may be taking that to heart. That was just, you know, driving through them. Definitely a bit iffy. I'm going to say that and leave that be as we'll take a look at the outboard shot here. Maybe just getting caught out a little bit there by the traffic, but again, in moments like that, that's a huge hit there with the 3 ramping up only on the back axle. Just lots of airtime over the front tires. You know, discretion is the better part of valor, and in a situation like that, drivers need to have the situational awareness to know when to lift off, as Jose Barboza has lost out on the lead in GT Pro. He is still falling.
Yeah, Barbosa dropping down the field now as a result. So Rick Team Racing down in the pit road. Barbosa's going to lose out to Go and Racing, and Jack Hedgecock's getting out in front. Frida Sport right now engaged. There is actually the Fury Sim Sport LB2. Now keep in mind, right now, Dylan Babcock in the Fury Sim Sport car actually fighting these GT cars for position right now overall. That is why these guys are not making it easy for them. They don't have blue flags with the prototype behind them.
Yeah, that's going to add into just a little bit more that these drivers have to juggle. They're juggling chainsaws right now as that 30 trying to get past. They're driving up off the track, and the 87 desperately trying to cling onto the back of that car. Aggressively cuts back down there. This is, I got to say, honestly, Nolan, we were thinking it was smooth throughout most of the race. We had a fantastic green flag run to get this race going, but then as the temperatures cooled off, I think the red mist has just descended upon this place. Drivers have been going for the jugular more often than not. Now, from our perspective in the booth, it's definitely been exciting. We haven't had a shortage of things to talk about at all throughout this broadcast, but I don't think these drivers are going to be very au cordial with each other once we're done with this race. They may have a little bit of outstanding beef as we head off to the next round of the championship.
Francisco Silva for Rick Team Racing making his way. He will look to take up the final lap of this race at the line. Getting around some last-minute GT Pro battles and not seeing too many more in the way of on-track action at the moment. That'll be close enough to fight it out in the final laps here. But I tell you what, this has been a very wild race, and one more bit of drama. DeMarcus Rogers didn't have the fuel, and with 1 lap to go, he's forced to give the lead up and go into pit road.
Oh, and that is disastrous. They were putting together such a good drive in their debut here this season, but DeMarcus Rogers having to come in for a splash and dash. That'll be music to the ears of that number 75 Mercedes, and it'll be music to the ears of the 33, who also jumps into second through that. Thankfully, though, for Rogers and that 499 Racing stable, it looks like they are sure to finish on the podium, but that is going to leave a sting. That is so unfortunate, falling at the final hurdle.
One thing that car has done, though, it has proven it has the pace. It can fight for race wins. They just need to get the strategy right next time out. That could be a car that we're talking to in Victory Lane for too much longer. But like you said, what a massive shame. Francisco Silva making his way down the back straightaway. Officially, this is the final lap. The 2 hours and 40-minute timer has expired. And for Silva, he'll make his way into the final series of corners, this time by on what has been an absolute barn burner here today. The battle for third place in GT Pro just ahead of him. And it's going to be Francisco Silva for Rick Team Racing, taking the win here this afternoon in LMP2 in the Virginia Sports Car Grand Prix.
And what a fight back for them. It's been a froggy battle all throughout this race. As look at a good finish here. SRN Motorsports at number 75. Daniel gonna grab the win in class there. That, I believe, is their first victory so far this season, at least for the 75 car. 74 was able to win the Daytona 24, but what a fight back from them. Good drive, good race. We still have some more drivers left across the line, but what a wild one here at VIR.
Still more battles yet to be settled. This one is for 5th place in GTM Superstar Racing or Bentley SRT. 0.4 of a second between them. Will this fight close up anymore in the dying stages of this race? Over the top of roller coaster for the final time. Jake Bessemer closes the gap on Thomas Spencer down to just 2.25 tenths of a second. Right behind them, one of the GT Pro McLarens. Oh, he's close. He's close. It's a drag race up over the top of the rise. Down to the front straightaway. This one for 5th place in GTM, and it's going to be Superstar Racing Team holding on, while Jack Hedgecox will bring home the fight for GT Pro.
Yeah, a bit more tame as Hedgecox comes across the stripe. Wow, golly. Even down to the fall of the checkered flag, it was intense here in this race. Unfortunate to fall short there for Rick Team Racing. It was looking like they were able to get the win in that BMW, but things falling apart right as we got towards the end. Looks like they'll be able to hold on to the final podium spot as Free to Sport right behind. But what a day here at VIR. That was so much fun.
No kidding. What a race that we got treated to. That was frankly spectacular. Let's take a rundown of your official post-race results here this afternoon as we come home. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 in the classes this afternoon. It's going to be Francisco Silva for Rick Team Racing, bringing it home number 1 alongside Lucas Moncla in number 2. Samuel Hall brings home 3rd, Aaron Beaver in 4th, Matthew Orvech in 5th, Flight of Racing. Visual Motorsports back in 6th, Track Limit Sim Racing in 7th, then it's Swinton SR by Rebecca Bornheim, the last car on the lead lap in 8th. Finishing out the top 10, it's Fury Sim Sport and Grow Racing Team, with the likes of Sergio Ostas Red Light Competición failing to finish this race. GT Pro will see Going Racing take to the checkered flag. It's Marco Silva with Macro Fisher Motorsports, the Rick Team Racing, and Free to Sport closing out the cars on the lead lap, with Nicholas Soul, Tyler Red, and Timothy Johnston bringing it home. The first few cars one lap down. Grow Race Team, Unitronic Vision Motorsports, and Double Stint Racing close out the top 10 of your GT Pro entry here this afternoon. From there, it's Vulture Motorsports and VSR Competición 11th and 12th. Campbell brings it home in 13th for Sim City Racing. So both top 2 points runners in GT Pro having poor outings this afternoon. World of Sim Racing Team with 2 down. Virtual Power Sim Racing 5 down. And Russian Spatulas Racing will finish this race 8 laps down on the cards today. In GTM, it's SR Motorsports and Wastegate Racing 1 and 2. 499 Racing, what a heartbreak for them, running out of fuel, coming to the white flag. They had the chance for a race win. They'll no doubt have another chance right at Homestead not a week from today, but 1 race from today. Floyd Leveries brings it home in 4th with Superstar Racing Team in 5th. Renly SRT back in 6th. Vulture Motorsports in 7th. SWF Motorsports back in 8th. Blanco Matorte Simsport and BMW M Team TSR bringing it home 8th, 9th, and 10th. Moving down to the rest of the field, it's of course Free to Sport in 11th place. Intercom Fish Motorsports in 12th. Wolf Motorsports Sim Racing in 13th. Off the S Racing 14th. Going Racing and SR Motorsports bring home the 16-car field here this afternoon. My, oh my, what a journey that we had on the entirety of the field here this afternoon, and we will look to kick things off first and foremost with the driver that comes home number 1 in the GT Pro category, as it is, of course, going to be the likes of Joshua Goen and Jack Hedgecox. They were able to bring it home numbers 1, 2, and 3 here this afternoon, and we 1, 2, and 3. They're able to bring it home number 1 here in the GT Pro category. So we'll bring Hedgecoxon going into the broadcast booth, and what a stellar race win for you guys here this afternoon. Talk about taking a commanding win on this one. No one was able to touch you guys when they got out in front. Jack, we'll start with you. You brought us home to the checkered flag. Talk us through the run in GT Pro today.
Yeah, it was, I think, expectations. I mean, we expected to, do our best and do well, but I didn't expect to put it on pole, so we did alter our strategy there. We did pit early. I think that was different than a lot of people, and we were fortunate that the safety car did come out like not too long after we did do that. So, but regardless of that, I think we still would have done really good today. I had mega pace, and Josh did amazing during his stint in the lead there, and couldn't ask for much more. Xerex as well.
Josh, let's go to you about the strategy decisions made in this one. Of course, the Monterey, we saw an early driver swap end up being the winning strategy, and you guys went for a similar strategy here today, and yet again, it ended up being the winning one. Was seeing the success of such a strategy at Laguna Seca have any impact on what the call was for today?
A little bit. I'd be lying if I didn't see that and the benefits it gave those guys and kind of put it in the back of my brain. I think for us today, really, it came down to knowing that it's a similar track dynamic. It's like hard to pass. And with Jack starting up front and knowing that he would have mega pace, really we just wanted to kind of maintain clean air, and the flexibility that you get as a team from getting the second driver in early is just incredible, and so I feel like it really worked out well because you're able to get that flexibility with drive time, and then also maximize the amount of time you're in clean air. Of course, the cautions really stacked us back up and kind of essentially, for all effective purposes, neutralized that early pit stop strategy, right? Because we ended up coming into the pits immediately thereafter, and then taking the same fuel and being back on the same strategy as everybody else. So it wasn't meaningful today, but I think that it's definitely something that we'll keep our eye on and keep in our quiver for future races.
Well, looking forward, next time up, it is, of course, going to be at Homestead Miami Speedway. Last time it was for 6 hours. This time it's for 2 hours and 40 minutes. Jack, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Josh. What are your individual thoughts on what Miami could bring about for you guys?
My last experience at Miami was the LMP2 last time that we did this. So for GT, I don't know how it'll drive. I expect people will either go with like a high downforce for the middle sector or low for the oval. So we'll just see what everybody does for setups wise. I think it'll be really interesting. And then expectations, I mean, just go out there and win. So
yeah, exactly. On my side, I think it'll be good to have all four classes back. I think Miami does do pretty well with the extra traffic, and it's just more. It's more fun when the grids are, the track is crowded and there's just more traffic challenges to solve. I'm excited that it's a Sprint Cup race. I think that'll be, pretty accommodating for that track, and so yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Well, you guys are probably one of the only GT cars that's going to be happy that there's more prototypes to deal with after today. But we'll wish you guys the best of luck when we go racing next month at Homestead Miami Speedway. Good luck.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nolan.
Jack Hedgecoxon, Josh Goen coming home number one for Goen Racing. We're going to bring up Jose Barbosa. Barbosa finished third for Rick Team Racing and GT Pro, but he is right now the class representative, of course, for LMP2, and Rick Team Racing bringing it home number one in the prototype field this afternoon for LMP2. Jose, obviously, for the team, this is a huge win, a podium for you guys in GT Pro, and a win as well in LMP2. It's got to feel like a good day at the office.
Yeah, it feels like a very good day. Very positive. Pace was there, so very, very good to have delivered.
Kind of talk us through what the strategy call was today. I know you were mostly focused on the GT field, but for the prototypes, it proved to be a race of attrition for quite a few drivers, with GT traffic being quite the handful to manage this afternoon.
Yeah, it was very tough, especially through the S's, both in the first sector and then in the second sector. It was just crazy to deal with. Both GT, from my perspective, having to deal with LMP2s, and the LMP2s having to deal with us was chaos.
Well, you guys have been able to make that Rick Team Racing number 87 one of the only LMP2 cars so far to take a repeat win this season. No small feat, and it's going to help you big time in the championship. Homestead Miami Speedway, it's on May 9th, but that's going to come up faster than a lot of people might think. What do you reckon the odds are that it'll be a third win on the year for the 87?
No odds. We'll crack on. We'll push. We'll train, and we'll see how it goes. We always try to do our best, and that's what we're gonna do. Humble as always, but if we can get a win, obviously we'll take it. But yeah, we'll do everything in our power to make that possible.
Well, a fantastic day at the office for the Rick Team Racing crew, not just in LMP2, but with a podium as well in GT Pro. Jose, thank you for taking the time to join us and speak on behalf of our LMP2 winners, and we'll see you guys in a few weeks when we swing out to Homestead.
Thank you, guys.
Jose Barbosa comes home number 3 in GT Pro, and speaking on behalf of your LMP2 winners here this afternoon. No sign of SRM Motorsports or anybody from their team to give us a chit-chat here from GTM, so I do believe that will be just about all the time we have for one afternoon, but my goodness, what a race that we were treated to here tonight. That was nothing short of spectacular. There's still plenty of racing action yet to be had when we go racing on Green Flag TV. Next up, it is going to be the SRA IL Truck Series headed out to Rockingham Speedway. And then, of course, the Blazing Pedals Truck Series will be out for more at Phoenix. So the Motor C Racing IMSA Championship at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya on Sunday. Monday night action, we'll see the Belgian Sim Racing Federation headed out to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the first race of the Formula 4 Championship. CIL UNOH Cup Series action will be out at Homestead Miami Speedway on Monday, as will the Aspire Racing Series at Long Beach Street Circuit. Mid-Atlantic Race Series will then be out at Nashville Super Speedway later on that afternoon. If you want to find out more about who you are and what we can offer you, check us out today at www.greenfly.tv. Once again, my name is Will Ramble. Alongside me today has been Ron Mons, bringing you all the action. We'll take you to the final couple of hours now in the FTR Almeida Racing Academy Endurance Series, as they are still up and racing as well. And we'll see you next time at Homestead Miami Speedway on Green Flag TV.